Chapter 844. Light energy shockwaves, mana pyrolysis rays, pugilist shockwaves, psychic bombs, compressed water lines, and many other beyond grade A attacks focused on him. Han Zhao's psionic shield shattered, his mechanical suit shattered, and his body flew out uncontrollably. His vision spun, and the galaxy seemed to have turned into meteors. It took him a lot of effort to stabilize his body and float in outer space. His body was in intense pain, and the cells in his body were being destroyed and regenerated. Not far behind them was the enormous galactic battlefield where the fleets were fighting, and below their feet was the outline of an iron-gray planet. Sagman and the other 5 took back the 10,000 deity scepter and discovered that Han Xiao had tampered with it. Their expressions changed drastically. Seeing Sagman's shocked and angry expression, Han Xiao could not help but smile despite the intense pain all over his body. He was secretly excited. This was worth it. The threat of the 10,000 deity scepter was too great. Even if each person could only use it once in a short period of time, they could still use it 6 times in total. If the enemy used this killing weapon without any restraint, they would not even have a chance to fight back. Their only hope was to freeze the enemy's 10,000 deity scepter. The core of the plan was the space-time amber, which could seal the 10,000 deity scepter. They had already been in a desperate situation earlier, so this combo was actually quite risky. First, they would pretend to surrender and take out the evolution cube under the enemy's supervision. Then, they would immediately launch an attack and use the evolution energy to force the enemy away. 2 of his teammates and the Mech Legion would help to hold them back. Then, based on his experience in his previous life, he would use the Amber Ball to block the 10,000 deity scepter, causing the enemy to be stunned for a moment to create an opening. Then, he would use the Amber to block the long-range energy attack of the 6 people from the Arcane Church. This was the first time the space-time Amber had shown its power in the universe. The enemy did not know what it was used for and was caught off guard. Only then did he have a short chance to come into contact with the 10,000 deity scepter. Because of the soul connection, the production efficiency of the space-time amber had increased. The size of the scepter was not large, and he had delayed it for about a minute, which was enough time to seal it. The 10,000 deity scepter is frozen in the amber, blocking all energy. They won't be able to open the amber, so I won't be able to use this killing weapon in this battle. Han Xiao clenched his fists in excitement. He had temporarily disabled the enemy's trump card. This battle could still be fought. Sagman grabbed the amber ball that sealed the 10,000 deity scepter. His arms glowed brightly as he pressed on the amber ball. Light energy particles gushed out from both sides of the amber ball. However, the amber ball was indestructible. The smooth and translucent surface of the amber ball was covered by the light energy particles and turned into a dazzling golden egg. His 5 teammates could no longer sit still and used all their means. However, they could not break through the amber ball and could only look at the 10,000 deity scepter inside. They could see it, but could not touch it. What is this thing made of? Why can't it be broken? Sagman was frustrated. He then stared at Han Xiao coldly, and through Psyker's psychic voice transmission, he yelled, "Be Astra-starred. What did you do?" There was no record of Black Star having this ability. They were not prepared. Could this be a new ability of Black Star? Or had he been hiding this trump card all along? Han Xiaoxin chuckled in his heart. It was a secret that he had obtained the space-time amber in the flickering world, and he had not revealed it to anyone. Only now did he reveal this trump card for the first time. What did I do? The 10,000 deity scepter is so precious. I only added an extra lock on it for you. It's absolutely safe. No need to thank me. It's free. Han Xiao chuckled and said with a playful tone, "I wonder if you're satisfied with my sealing skills?" This mocking tone infuriated Sagman, and his heart was burning with rage. He had thought that Black Star and the others would not be able to resist, and victory was already in his grasp. Who would have thought that he would be tricked and fail? Sagman gritted his teeth and tossed the 10,000 deity scepter to Ninja after failing to break the amber seal. We can't break through Black Star's means now, but at least the 10,000 deity scepter is still in our hands. When we return, we'll get the Arcane Church to figure out how to take it out. Ninja had no choice but to do as he was told. The Arcane Church had given this universal treasure to them because they wanted them to deal with Milizau's quickly. Now, both he and Sagman had exhausted a lot of energy from using the 10,000 deity scepter, and their condition had deteriorated. However, they did not manage to kill one of the three pillars of the dynasty. Not only that, the 10,000 deity scepter had been sealed by Black Star with some strange means, and they could not use this trump card for the time being. Not only could they not end the battle quickly, but their goal of intimidating ES God was also ruined. They had gone for wool and come home shorn. Seeing Sagman and the others put away the 10,000 deity scepter, a playful smile appeared on Han Zhao's face. He knew that these people thought that the 10,000 deity scepter was only temporarily unusable and felt that they could get the Arcane Church to remove the effect of the space-time amber when they returned. They still don't know the severity of the problem. Han Zhao's lips curled up. The space-time amber was the remains of the space-time freezer, and its effect came from the Esper ability to freeze space-time. However, during the process of drifting in the universe, it had absorbed all kinds of strange cosmic radiation and had long mutated, transforming into a space wonder-level treasure. Most of the things that could be called space wonders were phenomena that could not be explained by current theories. If it was so easy to use technology to break the effect of the space-time amber, there would not have been so many beyond grade as in his previous life dying because of it. Such a thought flashed through Han Zhao's mind, and he quickly retracted his smile and stared at the six of them. Although he had sealed the opponent's trump card, the suppression brought by the six beyond grade as still existed. He had only completed a partial counterattack, and the battle was far from over. The few of them faced each other outside the atmosphere, and after more than a minute, Austin, Milizau's, and Bayoni arrived. Seeing that their temporary plan had succeeded and Han Zhao had really restricted the enemy's 10,000 deity scepter, Milizau's was overjoyed and could not help but give Han Zhao a look of approval. "You're very reliable, little brother. Although you're the source of this crisis and caused me to be heavily injured, seeing that you saved my life, I won't be angry at you." The number of beyond grade as gathered had reached a shocking 10. The energy waves emitted by the 10 of them were intertwined, and it was displayed as the most dazzling high-energy reaction area on the radars of countless battleships. The number of energy waves was like countless stars exploding, constantly rising. "Do it!" Sagman and the others did not want to waste any more time and attacked. Han Zhao originally wanted to waste some time by talking, but seeing this, he had no choice but to counterattack. The 10 beyond grade as fought together and moved rapidly in the galactic battlefield, crushing all the battleships in their way and leaving behind a trail of explosions. At the same time, on the mother planet of the Red Empire in the Constellation Corridor, Ruler Urinril received an urgent report from Terakov and learned that the Arcane Church had launched a surprise attack on Planet Lighthouse. She was enraged. "Arcane Church, Radiant Federation." Urinril's face was ashen. It was not that she did not know that these two old rivals would cause trouble when the dynasty was exploring the flickering world. Originally, she thought that these two old rivals would at most play some dirty tricks and scheme in the dark. However, she did not expect them to be so arrogant and directly attack the dynasty's outpost in the New Star Field, wanting to kill 3 of the dynasty's beyond grade as. Did they think that the dynasty was weak and could be bullied? It would have been fine if it was a scheme, but the dynasty would never back down in a direct confrontation. Urinril immediately issued dozens of orders to mobilize the dynasty's army. She did not think that there was much chance of survival on Planet Lighthouse, so she had already started preparing for her retaliation. The dynasty's style had always been to pay blood for blood, and this was a tradition passed down from the exploration era. If one was not ruthless, one would not be able to stand firm. Since they were already stepped on, if they did not react like a mad dog, others would think that the dynasty was weak in reality because of the flickering world. At the same time, in the Shattered Star Ring section of the player forums, originally, most of the players were exploring outside, but because Han Zhao was on Planet Lighthouse, a small portion of the players would occasionally return. When the battle broke out, there were players who stayed on Planet Lighthouse, and Pork Bun was one of them. He hurriedly posted on the forums. Something big has happened. Planet Lighthouse has been attacked by an unknown force, and it's now a mess. There are probably 10 beyond grade 8 NPCs participating in this battle. When the news spread, the army players who were exploring outside were all stunned. 10 beyond grade as, oh my god, what kind of scene is this? How did you create such a huge piece of news in the blink of an eye? In the Planet Lighthouse universe battlefield, the 10 beyond grade as we're fighting back and forth. Due to Austin's arrival and the 10,000 deity scepter being sealed, the arcane church's advantage had been greatly reduced. Although Han Xiao and the other three were in a passive position, they would not lose anytime soon. Do you have any other plans? Milizao was quite convinced by Han Xiao's idea at this time. While fighting, he communicated through the mental communication network of the few of them. There are still 6 enemies, and we're still at a disadvantage. Our goal hasn't changed, and we can only hold on until reinforcements arrive. Han Xiao dodged a burst of light energy and controlled the Mech Legion to launch a round of focused fire, forcing Sagman back. He then continued, the enemy also knows this and wants to end this quickly. Milizao, although you're injured, you're still very durable. Austin has the protection of the Palace of Hidden Spells, so he won't be defeated easily. As for me, the nickname Indestructible Body is not for nothing. The one most likely to be targeted by the enemy is Bayoni. He's so fragile, so he'll definitely be the first to die. Bayoni was speechless. Damn it, I can't even refute this. If I'm not as strong as you guys, I'm not worthy of being a beyond grade A. Milizao was helpless. Let him stay on my back. I'll help him block a portion of the attacks. Do you have any other plans? Why don't you guys stay behind and I run? The 3 of them were confused. What's wrong with you, bro? Cough, cough. It was a slip of the tongue. Han Xiao let out a dry cough and sighed. There's really nothing else we can do now. This is a head-on battle, and there's no way to take any shortcuts. ES God is still on his way. Once he arrives, the situation will be even worse for us. Everyone was silent. Thinking of ES God, who had yet to appear, their hearts sank. This time, Han Xiao made up his mind and said, guys, I have a request. Please help me hold on for 5 minutes. I won't participate in the battle during this time. Protect me well. What do you want to do? Milizao was stunned. I have an explosive ability that can temporarily increase my combat strength, but I can't be disturbed by the outside world during this period. I just need you guys to hold on for 5 minutes. Han Xiao naturally would not reveal the existence of the promotion mission, so he could only make up a reason. Milizao was helpless. I just said that the situation is serious, but you're choosing to slack off? Also, what kind of explosive ability would require a beyond grade A to hold on for 5 minutes? How much can it increase my combat strength? Austin suddenly asked. It should be quite a bit. Han Xiao was not sure. Are you sure you want to do this? Milizao said with a deep voice. Even if you unleash your explosive ability, it's impossible for you to become extremely strong all of a sudden. You're still a distance away from me, and this little increase in combat strength won't affect the situation much. Without you in 5 minutes, we'll be in even more danger. You have to know that ES God hasn't arrived yet, so we can't suffer too much damage now. It's precisely because ES God hasn't arrived that I've decided to give it a try. If ES God arrives, it'll be even more dangerous for you guys to hold on for 5 minutes. Before he arrives, try to increase our combat strength as much as possible. Maybe it'll bring about a turn for the better. Han Xiao clenched his teeth. That was one of the reasons. The other reason was that the advancement this time was no small matter. Not only was it a class advancement, but it was also a new race evolution that could bring him new abilities. Furthermore, as long as he broke through this limit, he could continue to level up. The increase would definitely be significant. At this time, Austin suddenly said, "All right, enter the Palace of Hidden Spells. I'll protect you for 5 minutes. Can you do it?" Han Zhao's tone was strange. Not long ago, Austin had even thought of retreating. Now that the 10,000 deity scepter was sealed by Han Xiao and was no longer a fatal threat, Austin did not choose to retreat after hesitating. He did not expect him to take on such a difficult mission. This was completely different from the old man in his impression of him. Could it be that unknowingly, our relationship has become so deep? Or could it be that this old man really values his reputation that much? As if he had read Han Xiaoxin's mind, a smile appeared on Austin's tender face. Just when you sealed the 10,000 deity scepter, I suddenly felt that letting you live might be a good thing. Han Xiao was stunned. He thought for a while and said, "If we survive this time, I'll give you some space-time amber balls. That's what I used to block the 10,000 deity scepter." I was waiting for you to say that. Austin suddenly laughed out loud. Although he wanted to sound bold and heroic, his voice was so cute and tender. He was indeed tempted by the space-time amber and wanted to study what it was. However, this was not the only reason. The Arcane Church's 10,000 deity scepter was defeated, which was out of his expectations. The current situation was very clear. If he stayed, they could still fight. If he ran, the dynasty's combat power would be weakened further. The chances of Black Star and the other two surviving were extremely slim. It could be said that his decision would determine the life and death of the Planet Lighthouse troops. He had already stepped into this quagmire. If he ran away midway, both the Arcane Church and the Dynasty would be dissatisfied with him. If he stayed and continued to help Black Star, he would only offend one side. More importantly, Austin wanted Han Xiao to live. He liked this guy who always gave him surprises more and more. Isn't it just 5 minutes? Austin's eyes narrowed. I'm not that weak. Han Xiao opened the secondary dimensional army box, put away the Mech Legion, and flew to the side of the Palace of Hidden Spells under the cover of his teammates. A gap appeared in the defensive formation of the Palace of Hidden Spells, allowing him to enter. Without saying a word, he charged into the Palace of Hidden Spells, activated a mechanical army, and took out the space-time amber to seal himself. After obtaining the space-time amber for so long, he had already done all kinds of experiments, including sealing himself. He knew what it was like to be frozen by the space-time amber. His character status was shown as frozen. He could still move his thoughts and sense the outside world, but he could not move or release energy. He could not connect to the quantum network. Philip followed the instructions left by Han Xiao and controlled the mechanical army to surround Han Xiao. He could use the space-time amber to undo the seal at any time. Sealing himself was a safety measure to prevent any unexpected interruptions during the escape process. There were only 3 people left fighting against the 6 people from the Arcane Church. The pressure increased tremendously. Sagman and the others did not know what Han Xiao was doing when they saw that he was not attacking. However, with the 10,000 deity scepter as an example, they did not dare ignore Han Xiao's abnormal actions. Instead, they turned to focus their fire on the Palace of Hidden Spells. The Palace of Hidden Spells endured the ferocious attacks. In less than 3 minutes, the clock-like defensive formations protecting the Palace of Hidden Spells collapsed one after another, exploding into colorful magic fragments. The entire palace shook nonstop, and cracks appeared. More and more magic circuits were destroyed, and many functions failed one after another. Austin and the Forbidden Sorcerers cast spells crazily. Colorful magic runes shot into the magic formation of the Palace of Hidden Spells, and colorful magic radiance flowed within, repairing the damaged parts of the magic formation. However, the speed of repairing was not as fast as the speed of destroying. After all, the enemy outnumbered them by twice. On the other side, Milizhao's injuries were getting more and more serious. Although the situation was getting worse and worse, Milizhao's and the other 2 did not give it their all. They would not be killed by the enemy within 5 minutes. Austin's Palace of Hidden Spells was very sturdy. Although its durability had plummeted, it still managed to block all of the enemy's attacks. At the same time, the Dynasty's fleet and the Arcane Church's fleet were still fighting fiercely. High-energy light beams shot into the enemy's formation, and dazzling electric arcs appeared on the shields of the spaceships one after another. Terekov had already boarded the battleship and joined the battlefield. He commanded the battle and formed a defensive line to resist the crazy attacks of the Arcane Church. The Arcane Church's fleet outnumbered the defending army by a few times. The dark energy furnace of the enemy's disc-shaped assault ships expanded and contracted as if they were breathing, shooting out red arcs of dark energy that bombarded the giant blue psionic barrier of Planet Lighthouse's defensive line. With such a large scale of cannon fire, each round was enough to destroy the surface of dozens of planets. At this moment, the psionic barrier was exploding with dark energy. The Arcane Church's butterfly-shaped glorious sun-class, armed main battleship turned into a complete form. Hundreds of pairs of highly malleable soft alloy wings opened up, and the appearance of the main battleship turned into a sun-like pattern. The edges of each pair of butterfly wings glowed with a faint red light, continuously shooting out light blades as if they were attacking. If one looked closely, the edges of the butterfly wings were densely packed with cannon barrels. When the dense cannon fire was fired together, it formed something like a light blade. The Red Empire's main battleships were in a neat formation. The cannons fired together as if they could tear the universe apart with light beams. The three universal civilizations had many types of battleships, and they focused more on technology. The Red Empire's battleships were known for their powerful firepower, sturdy armor, and powerful weapons. How long until the reinforcements arrive? Tarakov stared at the star map of the battlefield and asked without turning his head. The first batch of rapid reaction forces will arrive in about 4 minutes, the adjutant hastily replied. Tarakov nodded. Planet Lighthouse was under attack, and had already ordered all the troops to return. There were more than 3 million battleships. As long as they could hold on until they arrived, the size of the fleet would be similar to the Arcane Church's, and the pressure would be reduced by a lot. If not for him leading the fleet to resist the attacks of the Arcane Church's fleet, they would not even have the chance to wait for reinforcements. He did not have any extra energy to pay attention to the battle of the Beyond Grade as he could only pray that Black Star and the others would not be defeated so quickly. Where are the fallen R troops now? Chief Commander, the fleet we sent out is still entangled with the fallen Arkansas. They will only arrive in about 22 minutes. Tarakov nodded. Just as he was about to speak, the radar suddenly sounded. Warning. Unknown high-energy source detected. Comparing database. Comparison complete. Target identity, ES God. Tarakov was shocked. He hurriedly looked up and saw a figure floating in space outside the battlefield. ES God. Didn't you say 20 minutes? Why is he? Tarakov was shocked. He suddenly realized that there were no troops beside ES God and immediately understood. This guy had abandoned his fleet and arrived early. ES God turned around and locked his gaze on the battlefield where the Beyond Grade as were fighting. He was not satisfied with the speed of the fleet, so he abandoned the fleet and used his teleportation Esper ability time and time again to arrive at the battlefield on Planet Lighthouse. Observing the situation on the battlefield, ES God narrowed his eyes. Black Star, where did he go? If you're interested, you can search the public account Chi Pagia. Occasionally, I'll post some information. Chapter 845. Author, I am the Fallen Immortal. My nickname is the Cute Little Fairy. I think it's a girl. I tried it, and it turned out to be a guy. Even better. The title of the book is I Am a Legendary Boss. If you're interested, you could take a look. Introduction. What if he transmigrated to become an NPC? This thought took root and germinated in William's mind. Thus, he decided he wanted to become the strongest NPC in history. He wanted to stack the thickest armor and take the most vicious hits. Who said that NPCs had to be killed by players? Who said that NPCs had to level up slower than players? Who said that NPCs had to drop equipment? I could drop even more. Ba ba ba. Anyway, it was impossible for him to die. He could only bluff the players and NPCs and live a life of hooliganism. Sigh. The chosen one in front, please wait. I see that you are unafraid of death and have an iron head. How about I sell this legendary helmet to you for 100,000 gold coins? Recommended book for Godly Mechanic. Please wait for a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 846. The next moment, ES God's figure flashed, and he directly teleported into the battlefield of the 10 beyond grade as. The moment he appeared, the expressions of both sides changed. The pressure on Milizau's and the other two multiplied. Escott had arrived so quickly. It had not even been 5 minutes yet. The beyond grade, as of the Arcane Church, also raised their guard, except for one person. Cisco, who was bombarding the Palace of Hidden Spells with his psychic energy, suddenly opened his 7 eyes wide with shock. "Why are you here?" Due to the grudge between them, the Arcane Church hid the fact that Escott was participating in this battle from him. Now that his enemy had appeared, Cisco's expression changed drastically. Escott turned to look at him and revealed a faint smile. However, in Cisco's eyes, it was no different from a provocation. "Don't be rash," Sagman said through psychic communication with a deep voice. "Escott is our temporary ally." Cisco was shocked, and his tone turned cold. "So, you guys knew about this beforehand?" The other 5 were silent. This was an order from the Arcane Church. It was indeed not right to hide this information from their allies. "Dylan, you knew about this too?" Cisco snorted coldly. "Sorry, I only knew about this a moment before we left." Dylan did not want to face the questioning of his good friend, so he vented his frustration on his attacks. He clasped his hands together and aimed at the Palace of Hidden Spells. Water flowed around his arms and turned into a high-energy blue laser under the activation of his Esper ability. It shot out along his arms and bombarded the colorful defensive formation of the Palace of Hidden Spells. "Cisco, the mission is more important. We'll talk about other things later," Sagman interrupted. Cisco's eyes darkened. He stopped looking at Escott and focused on his attacks. The battle was in its climax, and he had to end it quickly. Now was not the time to seek revenge. He had to think for his race, so he naturally could not disrupt the Arcane Church's plan at this juncture. Thus, he held his nose and endured. Seeing this, Escott also retracted his gaze. To be honest, although Cisco was one of the top figures in the entire universe, he was nothing in his eyes. Those beyond grade, as he had killed in the past, were not much weaker than Cisco. Of the 10 beyond grade as present, only Milizau's and Sagman were worthy of his attention. As for Austin, he had only heard of his name, but had never met him before. This was especially so for Milizau's. Only this old dragon had a record of killing a beyond grade a super like him. Escott had fought him several times and knew how strong this old dragon was. Thus, when he saw Milizau's injuries, a look of surprise flashed through his eyes. This wound was caused by a one-time attack. The Arcane Church must have used a special weapon to heavily injure him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been injured so quickly. Escott narrowed his eyes and became even more wary of the Arcane Church. He was worried that he would be betrayed after this. However, at this moment, he was still on the same side as the Arcane Church. Observing the battlefield, Escott could not see Blackstar or his Mech Legion. With a confused expression, he used his Esper ability to connect to Sagman's consciousness and asked, "Blackstar isn't here. Did you guys let him escape?" Sagman had just shot out a platinum energy attack, which penetrated Milizau's magic defense and exploded on his dragon back. Hearing this, he said with a deep voice, "Blackstar has left the battle and is hiding in the Palace of Hidden Spells. I don't know what he's up to." "Hiding?" Escott paused and asked, "Are you sure the evolution cube is with him?" "It's confirmed. He just took it out and used it." "Good." Escott nodded. The next moment, he appeared above the Palace of Hidden Spells and stepped on the surface of the defensive magic formation. When a magic formation was activated, it did not affect him at all. Austin, who was sitting at the top of the Palace of Hidden Spells, looked up and saw Escott's feet. The two of them were separated by a thick defensive magic formation. Austin's eyes narrowed. He opened his arms, and the dozens of magic books around him started flipping on their own. Whoosh! As the pages flipped, colorful magic runes were born and quickly landed on the Palace of Hidden Spells. Following the magic circuits everywhere, they were instantly transmitted to the control core of the Palace of Hidden Spells. This was how the Palace of Hidden Spells operated. The next moment, the defensive magic formation thousands of meters under ES God's feet suddenly changed color. Magic energy exploded, and a fountain of colorful magic energy burst out from under his feet and swallowed ES God. Austin was looking up at the result of this attack when an unfamiliar voice suddenly sounded in his ears. It was like thunder in his heart. "Magician Austin, you're quite strong." ES God was standing behind him without him knowing. He used energy refraction, plasma, dimension gap, teleportation, and many other Esper abilities at the same time to directly pass through the defensive magic formation of the Palace of Hidden Spells that the 6 people from the Arcane Church could not break through. ES God's strength was not just his strength, but also his rich Esper abilities. *T. Austin was shocked. Although there were many restrictions inside the Palace of Hidden Spells, their defense was not as strong as the defensive magic formation outside. If ES God slipped in, the Palace of Hidden Spells would be broken through from the inside. He would not be able to stop him. Boom! The defensive magic formation was shattered by ES God, who had activated Strength Esper ability, Star Toss. Austin's small body flew out like a cannonball. The red-robed mages around Austin hurriedly cast their spells, wanting to stop ES God. However, the next moment, their bodies collapsed, and they turned into dust one after another. Looking at the strange way their companions died, the mages further away were all frightened. Seeing that they were about to turn into dust, they hurriedly retreated, not daring to get close to ES God. ES God put down his hand, and a satisfied look flashed through his eyes. He had used the Esper ability that came from ashes. Using it against targets weaker than him was simply a god-tier Evoe Esper ability. Then, ES God activated his Esper ability and instantly scanned the entire Palace of Hidden Spells. However, he was stunned. He did not sense Han Zhao's energy waves. His senses were blocked by the space-time amber. This situation made him frown. Where did he go? Austin stabilized himself in the distance. He would not be so easily injured by ES God. Remembering the mission of stalling for time, he decisively counterattacked and interfered with ES God. Boom, boom, boom. The two of them immediately started fighting inside the Palace of Hidden Spells, and the shockwaves destroyed many buildings. Although Austin was not ES God's match, if he went all out, he could still stall ES God for some time. However, the wounds on his body were increasing rapidly, and he could not be bothered to control the Palace of Hidden Spells. Without Austin's control, the operation of the Palace of Hidden Spells slowed down. Although the red-robed mages and forbidden sorcerers who were still alive tried their best to control the Palace of Hidden Spells, they could not hold on at all with so many beyond grade as surrounding them. Kacha-kacha! The defensive formation shattered layer by layer, finally reaching a critical point and exploding. A huge hole appeared on the defensive barrier of the Palace of Hidden Spells, and a powerful suction force came from it. The Palace of Hidden Spells was a sealed space, and all the air inside was sucked out. It's finally broken. Sagman hurriedly rushed in, afraid that ES God would snatch the evolution cube first. At this time, before anyone could observe the situation, a familiar energy wave gushed out from within the Palace of Hidden Spells. A tower in the Palace of Hidden Spells shattered, and a figure shot out. A fist rapidly enlarged in ES God's eyes. Whoosh! Bang! The fist landed on ES God's raised arm. The huge impact passed through ES God's body and formed an air cannon, exploding into the defensive circle of the Palace of Hidden Spells and turning into a hurricane. This figure was Han Zhao. His fist was pressed against ES God's arm, and they clashed again and again. Feeling the shocking force coming from his arm, ES God raised his brows with a surprised expression. Compared to the last time we fought, you've become much stronger. The last time they fought in the Central Galaxy, he had an overwhelming advantage over Black Star. However, the energy level that Black Star displayed now made him look at him in a different light. The improvement was too obvious. What ES God did not know was that the last time they fought, Han Zhao was only at level 240, stepping on the threshold of beyond Grade A. Now that he was at level 260, his strength had increased significantly. However, at this time, Han Xiao had not advanced. However, he had already left the battle just now, and the promotion mission was finally displayed as completed. He could complete it at any time. That was close, so close. After wrestling with ES God, Han Xiaoxin heaved a sigh of relief. ES God had entered the battle early, causing the situation to worsen rapidly. Thankfully, this guy had spent some time observing the situation and was then held back by Austin. This allowed him to leave the battle for 5 minutes. Seeing that the two of them were in close contact, Han Xiaoxin hesitated for a moment and suppressed the urge to use ES God character's summon card, Esper Silence. Although he had already leveled up and could advance at any time, the level difference between him and ES God was still there. The effect of Esper Silence depended on the level, energy, and luck of both parties. If the duration was too short, the damage done to ES God would be limited. The 6 Beyond grade, as of the Arcane Church, were not made of wood. Although ES God and the Arcane Church were wary of each other, Sagman and the others would not be so short-sighted as to watch their reinforcements suffer heavy losses. Even if they were unwilling, they would still protect ES God. Under such circumstances, using this character's summon card would only be a waste. Thinking of this, Han Xiao did not continue to fight with ES God. He opened the secondary dimensional army box again and released the mech army that he had stored earlier. Promotion. LV260 promotion mission completed. Plus 45 end. 1 Yendi equals 355 health equals 365 stamina. In an instant, his cells changed drastically, and his body was turned upside down. Intense pain exploded, hitting every nerve. Every promotion required time to transform, and it would not be completed instantly. Thankfully, Han Xiao was already familiar with this kind of pain. As a mechanic, he relied on his mechanical army to fight most of the time, so he could still fight through the pain. ES God sharply noticed the changes in Han Xiao, and his eyes narrowed. This guy's energy fluctuation is increasing in the midst of battle. The other Beyond grade has also noticed Han Xiao's abnormality and were surprised. They were not unfamiliar with this situation. Wasn't this the evolution of life form? Is this what you mean by the eruption? Austin was stunned. He did not expect Han Xiao's eruption to be a breakthrough in life form. Every Beyond grade A had experienced such a life form evolution many times, but their evolution was done slowly, and some even took decades. However, to evolve in the midst of battle and compress years of evolution in such a short period of time, they had never seen such a thing in their lives. Could this be the reason why Black Star broke the record of becoming a Beyond Grade A Super? Is this his special talent? Everyone was bewildered, and they all had such guesses. A notification popped up on the interface, and Han Xiao quickly chose the race evolution option. His talent would be merged into the Black Star race. He could only take a quick look at his new talents and abilities during the battle. He was already distracted by the pain of the transformation and could not afford to slack off anymore. He forced himself to focus and continue fighting. The strength of the Mech Legion had obviously increased, and Han Xiao could feel the pressure for the enemies lessening. 7 against 4, ES God's participation had made the situation worse. Han Xiao did not expect to turn the situation around with just one promotion. The promotion was to increase the strength of his side and stall for as long as possible. The Arcane Church had 6 Beyond grade as an ES God. His side was at a huge disadvantage, and with such a huge gap in strength, if the enemies did not reveal any flaws, there would be no chance for them to counterattack. Han Xiaoxin had plenty of tricks up his sleeve, and he would not lose his cool because of the sudden increase in strength. With such a dangerous situation, he really did not have the capital to be reckless. There was only one word: stability. Austin's Palace of Hidden Spells was heavily damaged, and Milizau's was not in a good state. Han Xiao returned to the battlefield and could only take on the role of a meat shield, taking the initiative to block the attacks for his teammates. His promotion had increased his tankiness significantly. Together with the Aurora character summon card that he had not been willing to use for many years, Han Xiao took on about half of the enemy's attacks by himself. Although he was in a passive position, he would be able to hold on for a while. Compared to the main battlefield, the area occupied by the beyond Grade A combatants was actually very small. While they were fighting, the situation on the main battlefield also changed. First, the outer fleets of Planet Lighthouse returned to provide reinforcements one after another, and the situation gradually stabilized. However, with the arrival of the fallen Ark fleet, Tarakov's fleet was surrounded, and they were once again in a passive position. The defenders of Planet Lighthouse were constantly being eaten away, and Tarakov's face was solemn. His eyes never left the 3D map of the battlefield. His brain was calculating rapidly, and he gave out orders one after another, trying his best to minimize the casualties of his troops. He took some time to take a look at the situation of the Beyond Grade as on both sides and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Thankfully, Black Star's side was holding off the enemy Beyond Grade as. Otherwise, it would have been troublesome. The Beyond Grade as were clearly the weakest link of the enemy, and they were the ones most likely to be defeated, yet they were barely holding on. Although Tarakov was not a Beyond Grade A super, he could imagine how terrifying the pressure on Black Star's side was. Clenching his teeth, Tarakov shouted, "Is there any news of the reinforcements? How long will it take for them to arrive at the Stargate entrance?" The adjutant was extremely busy and immediately went to check the news. He was so anxious that he was sweating profusely. Suddenly, he was overjoyed and excitedly shouted, "Commander, the reinforcements have arrived." "Commander-in-Chief, the reinforcements sent by the two nearest military camps have arrived at the entrance of the Stargate. The reinforcements from the border strongholds of Guru, Renault, and the Crown Star Cluster have all been gathered. Also, His Excellency Max Similar, His Excellency Heber, and His Excellency Raven Loudy are about to arrive." The reinforcements were finally here. Tarakov's eyes sparkled, and he yelled, "Engineering team, immediately assemble the Stargate and reactivate the channel. Let the reinforcements in." The Dynasty fleet immediately changed their formation, using the fleet as the defense line and assembling the portable Stargate in the center. Seeing this, the expression of the commander of the Arcane Church turned ugly. The resistance of the Dynasty fleet was stronger than he had imagined. Under the command of Tarakov, the defense of Planet Lighthouse was extremely resilient. There were many times when the commander of the Arcane Church thought that the Dynasty fleet was about to be defeated, but they still managed to hold on. The situation was the same on the Beyond Grade A battlefield. The four people of the Dynasty were too stubborn. He immediately contacted Sagman and said, "We can't let the Dynasty fleet assemble the Stargate. You guys hold back the enemy Beyond Grade and send one or two people to cut into the Dynasty's formation and destroy their Stargate." Sagman was unwilling to give up. Looking at Black Star, who was still alive despite taking huge damage, he clenched his teeth and made a decision. "Mercer, you and Dylan will go and destroy the Dynasty Stargate. We'll hold back the four of them here." The two mages had to control the Palace of Hidden Spells and could not be separated. Cisco was sensing the evolution cube and could not leave, and he had to stay behind to hold back Milizau's and ES God. Thus, he could only send Mercer and Dylan. Sagman originally wanted to end the battle quickly and get rid of Han Shao and the others. However, Austin had appeared, and the 10,000 deity scepter had been sealed by the enemy. At this point, he no longer had the confidence to end the battle quickly. The tenacity of Han Shao and the others was beyond his expectations. Since he could not end the battle quickly, destroying the Dynasty's Stargate became the more important mission. Sagman and the others went from attacking to holding back Black Star and the others, making it impossible for them to stop them from destroying the Stargate. Mercer and Dylan nodded and immediately left the battlefield, charging toward the Dynasty's fleet. With two less opponents, the pressure on Han Shao and the others was greatly reduced. However, they were not happy but worried. Only reinforcements could turn the situation around. They could not let the enemy destroy the Stargate's assembly. Now is the time to decide the outcome. This thought appeared in everyone's mind at the same time. Han Shao exchanged energy with ES God, and his mechanical suit was destroyed. He then changed into his 7th mechanical suit and turned to look at Mercer and Dylan, who had left with a gleam in his eyes. Finally, someone separated. Chapter 847. The fleet was the absolute main force of every civilization. The destructive efficiency of a beyond grade A was naturally not comparable to a military fleet of millions. However, the strength of an individual was different from the strength of a group. An individual with great strength had an irreplaceable role on the battlefield, just like the difference between a piece of titanium alloy and a rock. Compared to the entire fleet, a beyond grade A had strong individual combat strength, small size, and high agility. They could fight the fleet head-on and easily break through the fleet's defensive formation, cutting into the enemy's formation and executing a series of actions such as decapitation. During the battle, Han Shao had analyzed the direction of the situation. As long as the dynasty stabilized and lasted until the Stargate was assembled, the Arcane Church would definitely launch a surprise attack on the Stargate in order to cut off the reinforcements' path. At this time, the 6 beyond grade as on the enemy side would very likely change their strategy, leaving most of them to stall the 4 from the dynasty while sending a few to attack the Stargate. This was the opportunity he had been waiting for. Battle was the best catalyst. After fighting for so long, the pain of the promotion had gradually subsided, and Han Shao had gradually adapted to the changes in his body. The race evolution method for a beyond grade was to give him 5 options and let him choose 2 of them. Then, all the talents of these 2 races would be listed, and he would be allowed to choose 1 talent from each of the 2 to merge into the talent column of the Black Star race. Compared to the previous race evolution, the race evolution after Beyond Grade A was less random and had more choices. It allowed for a better combination. The 2 races Han Shao had chosen this time were Void Saint and Void Magician. Apart from the plus 45 Yen bonus, these 2 also gave him the attributes of the promotion. STR plus 266, DX plus 310, Yen plus 454, INT plus 537, MYS plus 372, CHA plus 177, and Energy plus 6,400. With the bonuses of Grade S, Advanced Strength in Life, Eternal Body, and Extraordinary Physique, Han Zhao's HP had already exceeded the 3 million mark. Apart from the help of his 3 teammates, Advanced Strength in Life also provided a temporary 10% increase to all attributes every time he lost 40% of his HP. In the beginning, it was the most dangerous. He had to use the Aurora character summon card twice in order to get through the most dangerous period. When his attributes were stacked up, he was finally able to hold on. In terms of the mechanical army, his main class had changed from Emperor Mechanic to Lord Mechanic, and his machinery affinity had increased once again. With the buff from the Perfect Mechanical Sense character summon card, the combat strength of his mechanical army had a significant increase, and they were the greatest hindrance to the enemy. Among the many talents of Void Saint and Void Magician, Han Shao purposely chose 2 talents that would be helpful to the current situation. The way he saw it, as long as he used them well and grasped the opportunity, these 2 talents would be enough to turn the situation around. The so-called opportunity was when the enemy beyond grade has split up. Dylan and Mercer were like 2 drill bits, charging into the formation of the dynasty's fleet and heading straight for the few stargates that were being constructed. Sagman and the other 3 stayed behind to hold back Han Shao and the others. Milizaos could only watch as the enemy split up. He tried to provide reinforcements, but was stopped by Sagman and the others. Only Han Shao split out a portion of his mechanical army to chase after Dylan and Mercer. The size of the Mech Legion was too large, and Sagman and the others were not able to intercept all of them. However, they were not too concerned. Dylan had 2 beyond grade as, and they would not be unable to deal with such a small group of beyond grade as. When Tarakov saw Dylan and Mercer cutting in, he immediately adjusted the formation and ordered the fleet to block their path. Although the speed of their advance was slowed down, it could not stop them from shortening the distance between them and the Stargate. Compared to a large fleet, the beyond grade as were too agile on the battlefield. Black Star, we can't go on like this. Austin and I have less and less magic, and we can't hold on forever. We can't let the arcane church interrupt our reinforcements. Milizaus was extremely anxious. The enemy has the advantage of numbers and has the initiative, forcing us to defend, Han Shao said with a deep voice. If we can make them lose a beyond grade A combatant, the pressure on us will be reduced to the greatest extent and cut off their hope. The enemy has been maintaining a situation where they have the advantage in numbers. We have no chance. No, I have an idea that can deal with those two. Maybe we can take the risk. Han Zhao's tone was solemn. However, ES God is only chasing after me. His ability can stop me, and he's a greater threat than the others. How high is the success rate? If ES God interferes, there might only be a 20% chance of success. However, if we're willing to invest, the success rate can be over 70%. What kind of investment? ES God's goal is to evolve. His alliance with the Arcane Church definitely involves an exchange of benefits. I know what he wants. If we give him what he wants, I understand. Let's do that. Now is not the time to be calculative. It's better than dying a slow death. Milizaus agreed. All right. Han Shao gritted his teeth and made up his mind. He glanced at ES God and suddenly opened his arms, activating one of his new talents. Void Prison. The four mages present felt a large amount of void dimension energy being released from Han Zhao's body and quickly enveloped the battlefield. The next moment, everyone realized that the space around them had become viscous, and their movements had become sluggish. After sensing for a while, the four mages realized that this was not a simple sluggish ability. The void dimension had descended and overlapped with this space, causing the space attribute of this area to be temporarily changed, forming a strange domain. The distance between them seemed to have shrunk, and they could not get close to each other no matter what. He used the power of the void dimension to rewrite this space. Ninja frowned and tried to cast a spell to get rid of the void prison domain, but he realized that the circulation of his magic had also become sluggish. Spatial freezing type of skills weren't considered rare, but due to the differences in the cause, the difficulty of dispelling them was different. As for the Void Realm Prison, that came from the Void Saint, it borrowed the power of the Void Dimension to form a special domain that could be maintained for quite a long period of time. It was extremely effective against the Abrupt Face Doll. Beyond grade, a mages who could control multidimensional energy could get rid of this domain, but it was extremely troublesome to get rid of the overlapping dimensions. Even if Ninja and Taylor worked together, it would still take some time to get rid of it. This ability did not differentiate between friend and foe, and even the movements of Milizaus and the Mech Legion around them were affected. Only two people could move freely. One was Han Shao, who had the Void Dimension Esper ability, and the other was ES God, who had the Esper ability of Dimension Crevice. ES God teleported again and appeared behind Han Shao. He gathered his Esper ability and punched toward Han Zhao's back with a playful smile on his face. This is not the first time we've fought. You don't think that such an ability will work on me, do you? Is that so? How about this? Han Shao narrowed his eyes. The fist was approaching his back, but Han Shao did not even turn his head. Instead, he looked at the fleet battlefield in the distance and locked his eyes on Mercer. ES God felt a subtle space fluctuation coming from Han Zhao's body. The next moment, a light flashed in front of him, and Han Shao turned into Mercer. Before Mercer could react to his sudden appearance, he was sent flying by ES God's punch. ES God was stunned for a moment before he realized what had happened. He looked at the fleet battlefield in the distance and saw that Mercer had turned into Han Shao. Void Swap was the talent of the Void Magician. It consumed 15% of one's health and energy to forcefully swap places with a target. It had a cooldown of 320 seconds. Void Prison and Void Swap were new talents that Han Shao had purposely combined to create this situation. A space-swapping ability. ES God was a little surprised. It was not that he had not seen such an ability before. He even had one himself. However, his Esper ability could only swap objects and was not effective on himself or others of the same level. Sagman and the others were also shocked. Since when did Black Star have such an ability? This was not recorded in any intelligence. Everyone looked into the distance and saw the situation clearly. Their expressions changed slightly. Mercer had been swapped, which meant that Dylan was alone. Han Xiao had created a one-on-one situation. The two of them were deep in the dynasty's fleet formation and were very far away from everyone else. Coupled with the control of the Void Prison, they could not provide reinforcements immediately. Black Star actually hid such an ability. Ninja was surprised. Break this domain as soon as possible and send people to support Dylan, Sagman said with a deep voice. If Dylan was held back, the dynasty would be able to successfully assemble the Stargate. In everyone's eyes, this was Han Zhao's goal. However, no one would have guessed that Han Zhao's real goal was to reduce the number of people in the Arcane Church. In the hearts of Sagman and the others, Black Star did not have the strength to defeat Dylan quickly. Therefore, no one thought that Han Xiao wanted to defeat Dylan by creating a one-on-one situation. If it was Milizhao's, it would be more likely. Even if they guessed it, they did not think that Han Xiao could do it. After all, Dylan was a beyond grade A who specialized in defense and crowd control. He would not be defeated so easily. Han Zhao's vision blurred, and he had already swapped places with Mercer and appeared not far away from Dylan. The long-range troops that were sent to chase him earlier gathered together. There were about 400,000 mechanical soldiers, and they opened fire at Dylan. Psionic cannons bombarded the barrier he created with his Esper ability, creating holes in it. Although Dylan was shocked by Han Zhao's sudden appearance, he did not panic at all. He could continuously convert the seawater he stored to form an energy barrier, so his defense was very strong. The way he saw it, Black Star alone would not be able to do anything to him in a short period of time. However, he did not know how terrifying Han Xiao was when he did not hold back at all. This is my only chance. Han Zhao's eyes narrowed. In a situation where his opponent was alone, there were no other enemies to disturb him. This was the only environment where he could attack with all his might. The next moment, Han Xiao aimed at Dylan, who was surrounded by the seawater barrier, and activated the Aim's character summon card that he had been saving for a long time. A powerful force field erupted, and under the heavy pressure that had no blind spots, the seawater that formed the energy barrier shattered. Dylan was shocked to find that he was actually bound by the force field. Aim's character summon card, Gaze of the Dragon. Back when he was at the Calamity grade, Han Xiao had used Aim's character summon card. After that, he obtained a new blank character summon card and went to record Aim's ability. He had never encountered a situation where he needed to use it and had kept it until now. This powerful control ability could not bind an expert of the same level for too long. Dylan was currently using his Esper ability to resist the force field and could escape at any time. Han Xiao was about to continue, but at this moment, ES God teleported over again. His Dimension Crevice and Teleportation Esper ability could ignore the Void Prison and was the only one who could destroy Han Zhao's plan. However, he did not come over to protect Dylan. He only had Han Zhao's Evolution Cube in his eyes. This guy's indeed difficult to deal with. Han Xiao had long predicted ES God's actions and made up his mind. He activated the Evolution Cube that he had prepared and shot a beam of evolution energy toward ES God. ES God's expression changed, and he suddenly stopped in midair. However, his next reaction was completely different from Sagman and the others. Not only did ES God not dodge, he even took the initiative to face the evolution energy that Han Xiao shot out. The pitch-black evolution energy surged into his body, and a black cocoon spread across his body. The condition of his cooperation with the Arcane Church was to help the Arcane Church obtain the Evolution Cube in exchange for the right to use the Evolution Cube once. At this moment, Han Xiao directly shot a beam of evolution energy at him. This was ES God's dream target. He did not care about anything else and directly received it with his face. This was Han Zhao's scheme. Since your target is my evolution energy, I'll give it to you. Do you want to continue attacking me or get the target first? ES God was directly controlled by Han Xiao, and no one came to stop Han Zhao's actions. While Dylan was controlled by Aim's character summon card, Han Shao directly used Void Hyperdrive to get close and threw a luck curse on Dylan. He then grabbed Dylan's shoulder and activated the ES God character summon card, Esper Silence. At this moment, the force field that Ames controlled disappeared. Dylan was about to use his Esper ability to push Han Shao away when he suddenly realized that he could no longer feel the existence of his Esper ability. His expression changed drastically. "You open fire." Han Shao activated all of his explosive abilities, including Gene Liberation, and roared in the quantum network. The next moment, the mechanical army surrounding them opened fire at the two of them. Psionic beams focused on the two of them. Dylan was an Esper. Without his Esper ability, he was a defenseless target. Furthermore, he did not have true damage immunity. The blue ball of light suddenly expanded and exploded. When the light dissipated, Dylan was covered in blood and on the verge of death. The mechanical soldiers around him extended a nanoparticle tentacle and merged into a few huge chain-like mechanical restraints, wrapping around Dylan's limbs and pulling them straight, firmly restraining his body. All kinds of mechanical traps surrounded Dylan, releasing all kinds of gravitational and electromagnetic energy to restrict Dylan's movements. All of the mechanical soldiers' cannons were aimed at Dylan, ready to fire at any moment. Han Shao was right behind Dylan, his arm tightly around Dylan's neck, and he stared coldly in Sagman's direction. His intention was clear. He was using Dylan's life as a threat. The expressions of Sagman, Cisco, and the others changed drastically. This change was beyond everyone's expectations. Dylan was captured by Black Star right after they started fighting. How could Black Star have such combat strength? How is this possible? Cisco's eyes widened, and his heart was in turmoil. Sagman's face was filled with shock. He finally understood that Black Star was not going to hold Dylan back, but to kill him directly, to reduce their numbers. This time, the two mages from the Arcane Church finally broke free from the Void Prison. Regardless of friend or foe, they all looked at Han Shao in shock. How did he capture a beyond grade A in such a short period of time? Sagman and the others did not dare continue attacking Milizau's and the others, afraid that Han Shao would kill Dylan directly. Milizau's and the other two were still in shock and did not move. This is troublesome. Sagman felt troubled. Dylan was obviously heavily injured, and his life was in Black Star's hands. If they continued to fight, Dylan would definitely die, not to mention whether they could complete the mission without losing a beyond grade A combatant. If it was an ordinary person, they could just abandon him, but Dylan was a beyond grade A combatant. Both sides did not make a move, and the situation seemed to be in a stalemate. Sagman clenched his teeth and secretly gave Ninja a look. Ninja understood and secretly sent a telepathic message to ES God. ES God, continue to move. Use your teleportation to destroy the dynasty's Stargate. It was not that Sagman did not want to save Dylan, but Dylan had already been captured. If they did not resolve this, they would not be able to advance or retreat. If they wanted to break the stalemate, they could only abandon Dylan and continue the mission. However, he did not want to abandon his teammates, so it was best to let ES God take action. ES God was not from the Arcane Church. If Black Star killed Dylan because of this, it would have nothing to do with them. Only then could they break the stalemate. However, ES God ignored him and directly teleported away from the battlefield, returning to the main ship of the Fallen Ark fleet where Hakuzen was. Hearing the noise, Hakuzen turned around and was shocked by ES God's current appearance. Black patterns were swimming around ES God's body like small black snakes under his skin. It looked a little scary. Your Excellency, ES God, you're injured? Injured? No. I feel great now. ES God smiled. The evolution energy had entered his body and was temporarily suppressed by him, which was why he did not form a cocoon on the spot. Order the fleet to retreat immediately and leave the battlefield. Hakuzen was stunned. Aren't we going to continue attacking? The goal has been achieved. Let the Arcane Church restrain the dynasty's fleet. We'll retreat. ES God had achieved his goal after obtaining the evolution energy, so there was no need to continue working together. He could not wait to find a safe place to enter his evolution state. How would he have the time to fight with the arcane church? ES God knew that this was Han Zhao's scheme, but as long as his goal was achieved, he did not mind falling for it. Suppressing the evolution energy would affect his own combat strength. The way he saw it, completing his evolution was more important than dealing with Black Star. As for credibility, since when did we have such a thing? The fallen Ark fleet immediately ceased fire. No matter how the Arcane Church's commander roared, it could not change their behavior of retreating from the battlefield. Seeing this, Han Zhao's mouth twitched. ES God's integrity really did not disappoint. Satisfying ES God's request was a last resort. He was the strongest person present, and as long as ES God was around, the situation would always be dangerous. His teleportation ability was too big of a threat to the Stargate, so they had to think of a way to make him leave the battlefield. Let's get through this crisis first, then think of a way to deal with ES God in the future. He cooperated with the Arcane Church, so the dynasty will not let him go so easily. Han Xiaoxin was certain and did not hesitate. On the other side, ES God's escape also shocked the people of the Arcane Church. ES God, Sagman was furious, and his expression was extremely ugly. In just a short while, the situation that they had the upper hand suddenly changed. One was captured, and the other escaped. Of the 7 beyond grade, as only 5 were left in the blink of an eye, and the one who caused the situation to change was Han Xiao. Sagman gritted his teeth so hard that they almost broke. Chapter 848. The fallen Ark stopped the exchange of fire, and the millions of quadrangular pyramid spaceships turned into streams of hyperdrive, leaving the battlefield of Planet Lighthouse and disappearing in the blink of an eye. This action of betraying one's teammates had clearly been practiced countless times. As ES God fled with his troops, the situation of the battle instantly changed. After losing their powerful external aid, the number of battleships on the Arcane Church's side was reduced by almost half. At this time, the defenders of Planet Lighthouse had already retracted all the outer fleets and shrunk the defense line. The size of the fleets of both sides was now equal, and the Arcane Church could no longer suppress ES God. Damn it! Sagman clenched his teeth as he watched this scene, but he was filled with helplessness. He was not in the mood to blame ES God for betraying their alliance. He knew that although both sides were working together, the upper echelons of the Arcane Church did not have much hope in ES God. It was precisely because they were full of confidence in ES God's integrity that they gathered 6 beyond grade as to launch a surprise attack with a 10,000 deity scepter, intending to end the battle before ES God entered the battlefield. In fact, according to the calculations of the Arcane Church, the success rate of Sagman and the others' operation was really high. 6 against 3, they had the upper hand. As long as they used the 10,000 deity scepter to make Milizhao's lose his ability to fight, the plan would have succeeded by 80%, and capturing 3 beyond grade as of the dynasty alive would not be impossible. However, what they did not expect was that Han Zhao's backup plan had taken effect. Austin, who had been observing in the dark, intervened and turned the situation from 3 against 6 into 4 against 6. Although there was only one more person, it greatly reduced the strength of the 6 from the Arcane Church. More importantly, the 10,000 deity scepter was actually countered by Black Star's strange method and even sealed. If not for that, we would have probably captured Black Star, snatched the evolution cube, and retreated with the fleet. This thought flashed through the minds of Sagman and the others, and they became more and more frustrated. Observing the current unfavorable situation, Sagman only felt a headache coming on. If it was just ES God retreating, the remaining 6 of them actually still had a chance to complete the mission. This was because ES God's participation in the previous battle was not completely useless. After fighting for so long, Milizhao's injuries had worsened, and his combat strength had decreased greatly. Austin's palace of hidden spells had been damaged to a certain extent, and many magic circuits had malfunctioned, causing a large number of magic circles to fail. Baoni was also not in a good state, and only Black Star was still holding on. However, his mech legion had also suffered heavy losses. Meanwhile, the 6 of them were still in good condition. At the very least, they had preserved more of their combat power than Han Zhao's group before. If they continued fighting, their chances of winning were still very high. However, Dylan had been captured by Black Star, which made Sagman's plan fail. In this battle, Black Star displayed a new ability that was not mentioned in the intelligence report. Sagman had to admit that he was indeed wary of Black Star. He did not know what other trump cards this guy had up his sleeves. What do we do now? Ninja frowned and asked in the psychic communication network. Sagman's gaze swept across the gigantic galactic battlefield and saw the scene of the fleet exchanging fire. He saw that the arcane church fleet had turned from advancing layer by layer to a stalemate, unable to break through the dynasty's heavy defenses and attack the Stargate that they were assembling. His face was green, and his tone sounded like he was chewing on steel. Inform the commander, we're retreating. You're abandoning Dylan? Cisco's eyes were filled with hostility. Sagman is right. Ninja nodded. Dylan has been captured, and ES God has retreated. It's now 5 against 4, and the enemy still has a hostage. Our plan to end the battle quickly has failed. There are only 2 paths before us. One is to continue fighting, and the other is to retreat decisively. The enemy's condition is not good. If we continue fighting, there's no doubt that we'll definitely win. However, time is a problem. We've already lost 2 combatants, and it'll be difficult to end the battle in a short period of time. Don't forget, the flickering world is the dynasty's territory. We don't have any foundation here and only have the secret Stargate as our escape route. The longer we fight, the greater the risk. Furthermore, ES God wants to use us to cover the retreat. We can't let him succeed, Taylor chimed in. Then, Dylan, the risk of saving him is too great. It might provoke Black Star to kill people, so we can only leave him behind. At least he can keep his life. After this, we can only rely on the Arcane Church to negotiate with the Red Empire. Ninja shook his head. Even if the dynasty was willing to exchange the hostage, the Arcane Church would definitely pay a huge price. Furthermore, the dynasty might not be willing to do so. His good friend was in the hands of Black Star, and he did not know how the dynasty would treat him. Cisco was in a terrible mood. Let's retreat while the dynasty is still building the Stargate. Sagman paused and said with a complicated tone, inform the upper echelons that this operation has failed. As soon as these words were said, everyone's mood sank. 6 against 4, and they were even captured by the enemy. This was a huge loss of face. The operation that was supposed to succeed had actually failed, and the 10,000 deity scepter was even heavily injured. What would the upper echelons of the Arcane Church think of them? Almost every step that turned the situation around was done by Han Zhao. If looks could kill, Sagman and the others would have already pierced him full of holes. Although they did not want to admit it, they knew that they were forced to retreat by Black Star. Cisco looked at the heavily injured Dylan from afar with an apologetic look in his eyes. Seeing his eyes, Dylan knew that he had been abandoned. The feeling of being abandoned did not feel good. Thinking of how he would be treated after becoming a captive, his heart kept sinking. The effect of Esper silence had passed, and Dylan's Esper ability had recovered. However, the previous round of attacks with true damage had all landed on his body. Without the continuous defensive barrier of his Esper ability, his body was not tanky enough, and he was heavily injured. If not for the fact that Han Zhao wanted to capture him alive, he felt that he would have been killed. He could not help but feel lingering fear. At this moment, Han Zhao was right in front of Dylan, and his arm around Dylan's neck contained explosive strength. Dylan was not a pugilist, and although his physique was far beyond a calamity grade, it was nothing compared to a beyond grade A. Coupled with the various mechanical traps, Dylan could not break free at all. Furthermore, the mechanical army was aiming at him, so fighting back would be playing with his life and Black Star's life. Sagman's group of 5 retreated toward the Arcane Church's fleet, entering their spaceships and retreating with the Arcane Church's fleet. The retreat was organized and did not reveal any flaws. The arcane church's fleet relied on their superior mobility to gradually break free from the entanglement and pull away from the dynasty's fleet. Milizau's and the other two came to Black Star's side, and Baoni felt a sense of relief. Luckily, you caught one of the enemies beyond grade or they wouldn't have retreated so easily. This guy is the arcane church's sea spirit Dylan. His combat strength is not bad, but you caught him so quickly. What did you do to him? Han Shao looked at Baoni strangely. Trust me, you're not unfamiliar with this move at all. Back when they fought against ES God in the Central Galaxy, Baoni had been hit by the real version of Esper's silence, and the memory was still fresh in his mind. However, he did not expect Han Shao to use this ability as well. Esper's silence was the nemesis of Esper's, and there were probably not many Espers in the entire universe who could defeat ES God in a one-on-one fight. Han Shao had a total of 2 chances to use the ES God character summon card. After using it once on Dylan, Han Shao planned to save it for ES God the next time. Before the battle, he had drawn 2 blank character summon cards, but he did not use them on ES God. After all, ES God had collected too many Esper abilities, and the possibility of drawing Esper's silence the second time was too slim. Drawing random abilities would not be of much use to him, and he still needed to copy Reynolds' perfect mechanical sense. On the other side, Milizau's looked at Sagman and the others retreating and asked with a deep voice, Sagman and the others have escaped. Do we chase after them? Don't count me in if you chase after them. Austin tightened his robe and calmly said, Black Star, I have already repaid the favor I owed you. Now, you owe me a huge favor. I know. Han Shao was helpless. To be honest, if not for Austin keeping his promise, the dynasty would have definitely lost people. Austin nodded with satisfaction. He then turned around to look at the forbidden sorcerers who had suffered heavy losses, and a pained expression appeared in his eyes. These people were all his elites, and it was extremely difficult to nurture them. As for the heavily damaged Palace of Hidden Spells, Austin did not feel any heartache at all. He just needed to spend some time to repair it, and he did not care about the cost of the materials. As a noble mage who had broken away from lowly interests, earning money was as easy as breathing. Austin was not an ally of the dynasty, so it was not good for him to ask others for help. Milizau then looked at Baoni and asked, What about you? Don't look for me for anything risky. Baoni rejected him directly. What a joke. It was not easy for him to get through this crisis, and the enemy had already retreated. He did not want to be in danger again. It would be better to stay here and wait for reinforcements. You're really a coward, Milizau said with disdain. I'm the most fragile. I'm afraid of death. Is that enough? Baoni snorted and turned to look at Han Shao. Are you going to chase after them? What do you think? Han Zhao's mouth twitched. Since neither Austin nor you are going, what's the point of chasing after them? Since none of you are going, Milizau suddenly changed the topic and said with a relieved tone, I'm relieved. The 3 of them all looked at him. What are you looking at? Do you see the hole in my chest? I'm the most heavily injured. Are you guys going to force me to chase after them and get beaten up? Can you be more considerate of this old dragon? Han Shao was speechless. Since you're not going yourself, why the hell did you ask? However, that was indeed the case. Other than him, the other 3 were not in good condition. The risk of chasing after them was too high. It was no wonder they were unwilling. This time, Tarakov also contacted them and said with a shocked tone, Black Star, you captured a beyond grade A from the Arcane Church. It's as you can see. Han Shao turned to look in the direction of the flagship and casually touched Dylan's head. It was wet and slippery, but it was quite round. Very good. You made the Arcane Church pay the price. This way, we have a bargaining chip in our hands. Tarakov's tone became excited. He paused for a while and became serious again. The Arcane Church is retreating. I'll send out troops to chase after them. You guys stay here and wait for orders. Don't go chasing after the enemy. Don't worry. Even if you beg us, we won't go. Han Shao was helpless. That's for the best. Tarakov nodded. After resolving the surprise attack of the Arcane Church, not only did they not lose any of their high-level combatants, Black Star even captured the enemy beyond Grade A, making a huge contribution. Terekov did not want them to chase after the enemy. The Stargate was to be assembled near Planet Lighthouse. This thing needed to be marked in space and could not be used while moving. If the Arcane Church made a feint and suddenly counterattacked after leaving Planet Lighthouse's range to lure the enemy in, it would increase the risk and might even ruin the advantage that Black Star had worked so hard to gain. Terekov was not in a hurry to chase after the Arcane Church. As a veteran, he preferred to play it safe. Therefore, he only planned to send out scouts to chase after the Arcane Church and lock onto their escape route. As for Black Star and the others, they would stay on Planet Lighthouse and wait for reinforcements to arrive. This was the safest way and would not give the enemy any chance. After the fallen Ark left, the Arcane Church fleet also left the battlefield and turned into a stream of light. Terekov sent out a small team to chase after them while the rest guarded the engineering team and assembled the Stargate step by step. The enemy retreated, and the flames of war were finally extinguished. Han Shao and the others all heaved a sigh of relief and flew back to their battleships to calculate the losses of their troops. At the same time, Terekov contacted the upper echelons of the dynasty and reported the results of the battle. On the mother planet of the dynasty in the central galaxy, ever since the news of Planet Lighthouse being attacked by the Arcane Church was sent back, it caused an uproar among the upper echelons of the dynasty. Unravel directly gathered all the generals in the conference room, and those who were not present used remote projections to participate in the meeting. Everyone was gathered in the same room, and everyone was excited. Terekov's first report of the battle showed that they were facing a pincer attack from 7 beyond grade as the Arcane Church and the Fallen Ark fleet. The difference in strength was too great, and the situation was extremely dangerous. The upper echelons in the room had already analyzed the situation, including Unravel. Most of them felt that Planet Lighthouse was hopeless and would most likely be wiped out by the Arcane Church. The 3 beyond grade as of the dynasty would either be killed or captured alive. At this moment, everyone was discussing how the dynasty should react to this matter. Her Excellency is right. The Arcane Church and the Radiant Federation worked together to attack our army, killing Marshal Terekov and 3 beyond grade as. We have to take revenge with an iron fist. Many of the upper echelons agreed. Terekov had a lot of prestige in the military, and it was very likely that he would be sacrificed this time. Many of his old comrades were filled with the flames of revenge. Unravel also nodded expressionlessly. As soon as she received the news, Unravel had decided to take revenge on the Arcane Church. The dynasty's dignity had been challenged, and they had suffered heavy losses. Under such circumstances, they could not let this matter rest. Otherwise, the dynasty's prestige would hit rock bottom, and their allies would lose their loyalty. Most of the dynasty's soldiers were strong-willed, and most of them agreed with the idea of taking revenge. However, even for a strong civilization like the dynasty, there were still different opinions. A small portion of the people present did not agree with the idea of taking revenge. They were not against the idea of taking revenge, but felt that the dynasty's forces should not be too intense with the flickering world. If they really started a universal war, the dynasty would be in an even more disadvantageous position. Just as everyone was arguing, a new remote projection suddenly appeared in the conference room. It was Terekov. All the upper echelons present immediately stopped talking and focused on him. Your Excellency, Planet Lighthouse has been defended. The Arcane Church and the Fallen Ark troops have been defeated by us. The battle is over, and we're still calculating the losses. Milizaus, Bayoni, and Blackstar are all fine. Terekov nodded to everyone present. Hearing this, all the upper echelons present were shocked. You guys defeated all the enemies? Unravel raised her brows, and a hint of surprise flashed through her eyes. Tell me the details. Terekov nodded and gave a concise account of the battle without adding any details. As they listened, everyone's expression changed. They all noticed the great contributions that Blackstar had made in this battle, secretly arranging to help Austin, stopping the 10,000 deity scepter, capturing Dylan. The arcane church's methods were all neutralized by Black Star. It could be said that if not for Black Star, the three beyond grade as of the dynasty would not have been able to survive, and the enemy would have really succeeded. The upper echelons of the dynasty exchanged glances and had a deep impression of Han Shao. To be able to turn the tables in such a desperate situation, this new ally of the dynasty seemed to be quite ferocious. Unravel narrowed her eyes. This battle was caused by Black Star, and she was originally a little dissatisfied. Losing two of the dynasty's beyond grade, as for Black Star, was not worth it. However, Black Star's achievements made her speechless. He even managed to capture one of the enemy's beyond grade as giving the dynasty a bargaining chip. She could not be picky about this result, and the grudge in her heart disappeared. She could not help but admire Han Shao. However, Unravel would not show it on her face. She nodded slowly without changing her expression. Pass down my order. Mobilize all the dynasty's fleets in the flickering world to pursue the enemy. Also, mobilize the troops in the Shattered Star Ring. If necessary, attack the Stargate stronghold of the Arcane Church in the Shattered Star Ring. Try to finish them off before they return to the Central Galaxy. Also, Unravel paused. Tell Black Star to talk to me directly later. At the same time, the upper echelons of the Arcane Church also received the battle report. Chapter 849. A few minutes earlier, on the mother planet of the Arcane Church on the bright silver spiral arm. In the round table hall, the bishops gathered again and sat in their respective seats, resting with their eyes closed. The authority of the Arcane Church was the same as the authority of the king, and faith and politics were inseparable. The bishops held a lot of power, and the robes of every bishop were very luxurious, with different styles, colors, and patterns, representing the faith that every bishop was in charge of. The impact of this operation was huge, so the bishops were personally in charge. It had been some time since the multi-dimensional sky opening transportation device had sent out the fleet. The Arcane Church did not have a quantum network in the flickering world and needed a special method to send back information. Therefore, the bishops were still waiting for good news from Sagman and the others. One of the bishops looked at the time, nodded, and said they should have succeeded already. It's about time, but why is there still no news? Another bishop was confused. Maybe they're counting the gains. Someone started the conversation, and the rest discussed softly. They did not think that there would be any accidents in this operation. The way they saw it, the cooperation between the Arcane Church and the Radiant Federation this time, using the 10,000 deity scepter and the multidimensional sky opening transportation device, as well as the external aid ES God as protection. Their fleet was more than twice the size of planet lighthouses, and their beyond grade A strength was 7-3. Although the other party had one of the three pillars of the dynasty, Milizau's, they had Light Beam Sagman, Divine Spell Ninja, and the infamous ES God on their side. Their quality and quantity far exceeded the enemy's, so there was no reason for them to lose. This time, the door of the room suddenly opened. The dome of the round table hall was very high, and the door was also 10 meters tall. It was pure white and did not seem to be made of metal, but smooth white jade. However, there was no gap between the door and the door, just like a wall. At this time, this white door started to turn into foam from the middle and shrank to the sides, making a bubbling sound like liquid. However, it did not open completely, only revealing a 2-meter wide gap. A figure walked into the room with his back against the light, and this gap closed behind him. The bishops stopped talking and stood up one after another, bowing their heads respectfully to this person. Your Excellency. This person was the highest leader of the Arcane Church. Hierarch was just a title in the interstellar language. In the language of the Arcane Church, the position of Hierarch was called Osamitatron, which meant the preaching God's pastoral Holy Spirit. The head instructor nodded and walked to the main seat. The seat was a floating white sphere. He sat down, and the sphere seemed to be soft. It sank down and adjusted itself according to his body's shape, adapting to his body structure and becoming the most suitable seat for him. Only then did the bishops sit down. Seeing that the hierarch had only come to wait for news and had no intention of speaking, they did not continue the discussion. After waiting for a while, light spots suddenly appeared in the middle of the round table and gathered together to form the remote projection of the fleet commander. The fleet had finally sent a battle report. The fleet commander saluted with a stiff expression. "Pope, bishops, the battle is over. We are retreating." Come back with the evolution cube. "We will send troops to pick you up," said a bishop who was more impatient. Hearing this, the fleet commander opened his mouth with an awkward expression. Seeing this, everyone was confused. The commander they had sent this time was also an elite of the military. Why was he so embarrassed? "Did something happen to you?" someone asked. "Yes, we did not complete the mission. This operation failed," the fleet commander replied. The upper echelons had used so many resources to give them an advantage. However, they did not even complete a single mission given by the upper echelons. Not only that, they even lost a beyond grade A super. The commander felt that this was too embarrassing. Furthermore, he knew that his future was probably over. "You failed." The bishops were in an uproar. They had used so many resources and had such a huge advantage, yet they still failed. "Please kill yourself. Tell us the details. How did you fail?" "We gave you 2 missions, which were to snatch the evolution cube and kill Milizaus and the other beyond grade as of the dynasty. Don't tell me you did not complete either of them." "Yes, we did not defeat Blackstar and the other 2, did not snatch the evolution cube, and did not kill or capture any of the dynasties beyond grade as..." The bishops' faces twitched. They did not snatch the evolution cube. All right. After all, Blackstar had dispelled Cisco's psychic senses, so it was not impossible for them to fail. However, they should have at least killed a beyond grade A, right? They could not even fulfill this minimum requirement. Did they think that they cooperated with the Radiant Federation and spent so much money to borrow the multidimensional sky opening transportation device just to send them there for a holiday? A bishop could not help but ask, "You brought the 10,000 deity scepter this time. How could you not even kill a beyond grade A? Did Sagman and the others not use it?" "No, they did. Then how did it end up like this?" "It's Blackstar. Sagman and the others originally wanted to use the 10,000 deity scepter to heavily injure Milizaus, but Blackstar used some method to block the attack of the 10,000 deity scepter." The bishops frowned. It was not that the 10,000 deity scepter could not be defended, but most methods would be penetrated. They had seen the intelligence on Blackstar and understood Blackstar's abilities. He did not seem to have the means to block the 10,000 deity scepter. Furthermore, this was the first time the 10,000 deity scepter had been used against him. Before this, Blackstar did not know the nature of the 10,000 deity scepter's attack, nor did he know that they would use this weapon. Thus, it was unlikely that he would have made any preparations beforehand. There's one more thing. The 10,000 deity scepter was sealed by Blackstar using some unknown method. Sagman and the others said that they could not dispel it. This is the specific situation. As he spoke, the fleet commander pressed the communicator and displayed the current state of the 10,000 deity scepter. The expressions of the bishops changed. The 10,000 deity scepter was their trump card to deter beyond grade but it was actually sealed by some kind of substance. No energy could penetrate it. Even beyond grade, a mages could not dispel it. What kind of strange substance was this? One of the bishops suppressed his anger and said with a deep voice, "Useless. Bring the 10,000 deity scepter back for research." This time, another person knocked on the table and questioned, "You can't use the 10,000 deity scepter, but you still have 7 beyond grade You still have the ability to deal with the enemy. Why did you retreat when you did not complete the mission?" The fleet commander's expression was ugly. He clenched his teeth and said, "Everyone, the enemy has more than 3 beyond grade We did not know beforehand that Blackstar had secretly reached an agreement with Austin. He had been on standby near Planet Lighthouse and participated in this battle. God was bribed by Blackstar and escaped at the last minute, taking his troops with him. Dylan was captured by Blackstar. If this continued, the dynasty's reinforcements would have arrived. We were forced to retreat. After hearing the fleet commander's hasty description of the battle, the bishops could no longer sit still. Their faces were green with shock and anger. The failure of the mission was already infuriating enough, but not only did you not complete the mission, you even lost a beyond grade A? A bunch of trash, if not for the fact that they were beyond grade, as a few of the bishops would have cursed out loud. This time, the Pope, who had been silently listening, spoke with an expressionless face. Dispatch troops to reinforce the Shattered Star Ring and prevent the dynasty from destroying our local Stargate stations. We must bring Sagman and the others back to the Central Galaxy and send reinforcements to prevent the Red Empire from intercepting us midway. At the same time, strengthen the border defense of the Bright Silver Arm to prevent the dynasty from retaliating. Inform the troops stationed in the various star fields to enter a state of alert. Then, the Pope stood up, flicked his sleeves, and left. Although he did not show any emotions on his face, the bishops knew the Pope's personality very well. He was probably extremely angry. At the same time, the Radiant Federation also received the news. The Arcane Church failed? President Bader was a little shocked. He browsed through the intelligence report and narrowed his eyes. How unexpected! The chief elder tapped his walking stick and said with a strange tone, "Under such circumstances, the Arcane Church was actually defeated by Planet Lighthouse. Isn't that a little too useless?" Bader did not reply. He swiped his finger on the virtual screen and brought up Black Star's information. He slowly said, "Instead of saying that the Arcane Church was defeated by Planet Lighthouse, it's better to say that they fell in the hands of Black Star. Tarakov is a famous commander of the Red Empire and is good at defense. With less than half of the enemy's fleet, he should have been able to hold on for some time. This isn't strange. The real breakthrough was the battlefield of the Beyond Grade as Black Star turned the situation around, which changed the entire situation. The Arcane Church lost a Beyond Grade A. TSK, they suffered a huge loss this time." The chief elder gloated. Bader also smiled. Although he was cooperating with the Arcane Church, he could not wait to see both sides suffer. No matter how the Red Empire and the Arcane Church fought, the Radiant Federation would still benefit. After all, they did not send out any troops and only lent the multidimensional sky opening transportation device once. Even if the dynasty wanted to take revenge, they would mainly deal with the Arcane Church. They would not do anything too extreme to the Radiant Federation. "Your Excellency, what do you plan to do next?" Bader crossed his arms and rested his chin on his hand. After pondering for a while, he slowly said, "The Crimson Dynasty will not let go of the Arcane Church's assault team so easily. Mobilize our troops and allies in the Shattered Star Ring to participate in the dynasty's follow-up pursuit." "You plan to help the Arcane Church escape back?" "No. Our cooperation with the Arcane Church was only limited to borrowing the teleportation device. That was just a transaction, and since the transaction is over, there is no need to continue the cooperation." Bader's eyes flashed. "Help the dynasty intercept the Arcane Church fleet." The chief elder shook his head helplessly. Too bad, betraying their partners so quickly. However, they were not allies with the Arcane Church in the first place. They were only targeting the dynasty while the dynasty was exploring the flickering world. The three universal civilizations had always been competitors. If there were benefits, they would cooperate. If there were no benefits, they would fight. Everyone was used to it. The chief elder thought of something and chuckled. "Speaking of which, the biggest winner this time seems to be ES God." "I don't think so. It's just a chance to use the evolution cube. That little gain is nothing." Bader looked at Han Zhao's information again and slowly said, "The Arcane Church is in the wrong, and the dynasty will definitely make a statement on this matter. Then, Black Star's achievements in this battle will spread throughout the entire universe. Killing or capturing a Beyond Grade A of the same level will have a completely different deterrent effect. Furthermore, the Arcane Church was mainly targeting him this time, but he forced them to retreat. This is equivalent to stepping on the Arcane Church's position, and his influence will increase tremendously. Not only that, he made a huge contribution in this battle, and his position in the dynasty will greatly increase. Black Star is the biggest winner this time. As soon as the battle ended, when the upper echelons of the three universal civilizations received the battle report, Han Xiao flew into a Black Star Corps battleship and told Philip to count the losses and gather the officers. The Black Star Corps did not have many fleets left on Planet Lighthouse. During the battle, the dynasty's fleet was the main force, so the number of battleships lost was not many. On the other hand, the Calamity-grade Black Star Guards all took action, so it was unknown if they suffered any losses. Walking into the cabin, Aurora was already waiting there. As soon as she saw Han Xiao, she immediately pounced over and bumped into him. Aurora stood on her tiptoes and hugged him, her hands tightly around his waist. "It's great that you're fine. I was so worried." Aurora still had some lingering fear in her voice. She buried her head in Han Zhao's embrace, as though she wanted to crawl into Han Zhao's 8-pack. Smelling the fresh scent on Aurora's body, Han Zhao's tensed nerves gradually relaxed. Facing 7 beyond grade, as at the same time, was extremely dangerous. Not only was he being beaten up, but he also had to endure the pain of his promotion. Only now that he relaxed did he feel a wave of fatigue. His body was aching all over, and the pain of his promotion had not completely disappeared. Looking down at Aurora and feeling the softness in his arms, Han Xiao felt much better. He raised his hand and rubbed Aurora's head. Her soft hair was extremely smooth to the touch. "Where's your sister? Is she okay?" I've given her life force a few times. She's still alive." At this time, the hatch opened again, and Hela walked in with a group of Black Star Guards. Everyone was injured, but no one was dead. This was all thanks to the life force potion that Aurora had made. Every Black Star Guard was equipped with some Aurora's potion, which was enough to protect the lives of these Calamity-grade Black Star Guards. Aurora turned around and looked out from the gap between Han Zhao's arms. She saw that Hela was injured and bleeding. She hurriedly left Han Zhao's embrace and ran over. "Ah, sister, you're injured. Let me heal you." Hela waved her hands and rejected her. "The battle is over. These small injuries will recover after some time. Don't waste your life force." As she spoke, she turned around and looked at the Black Star Guard behind her. "You guys are not allowed to use it either. Except for Fu Ding." Hardaway and the others were still hoping that Aurora would heal them, but after hearing Hela's words, they could only give up. "Why should I be an exception?" Fu Ding pointed at his head with a helpless expression. "Don't misunderstand. Chen Xing wanted me to ask. Black Star said that you were lucky and told us to rub off on you," Hela said honestly. Then, Hela turned to look at Han Xiao and size him up. Seeing that he did not lose any limbs, she heaved a sigh of relief. Her red lips moved slightly as though she wanted to say something, but she did not say anything in the end and only nodded. This time, Hardaway suddenly asked, "I heard that you captured a Beyond Grade A. Where is he?" As soon as this was said, everyone became curious. This was the first time their army commander had defeated a Beyond Grade A in a head-on battle. They all wanted to see the Beyond Grade A captive. Han Xiao smiled and had the mechanical army bring Dylan in. Dylan's entire body was bound by machinery like a steel mummy. Only his face was exposed. This bit of restraint could not restrict the movements of a Beyond Grade A, but Dylan knew that he had been abandoned. He was in the enemy's camp, and his teammates had fled. Resistance was meaningless, so he could only accept his fate and accept the reality of being a captive. The Black Star Guards all came up to size him up, making comments about him and discussing him spiritedly. He was defeated in one move. "He's so weak. Do you know how to speak?" "It's clearly because the army commander is too strong," Hardaway said angrily. Yes. You're the one with the higher awareness." Dylan's expression was ugly. He was a Beyond Grade A, but he was being looked at like an animal. He could not help but want to use his Esper ability to teach these Calamity grades a lesson. Even if he was defeated, it was not their turn to humiliate him. "You want to resist?" Han Xiao sensed the energy fluctuation and had an unfriendly expression. "Tell your subordinates to scram." Dylan roared. "Don't think that you can humiliate me just because you captured me. Even if I'm controlled by you, I can still easily kill them." "Oh, you reminded me. It doesn't seem safe to tie you up like this. Han Zhao's lips curled up, and he took out the space-time amber. With the hook of his other finger, he made Dylan hover in midair. The Black Star guards knew the effect of this thing, and they all had mocking expressions as they backed away. Seeing everyone's mocking expressions, Dylan suddenly had a bad feeling. He asked cautiously, "What are you planning to do?" "Don't worry, you're already a captive. Not only will I not hurt you, but I will also protect your safety." Han Xiao chuckled. "Trust me, I will definitely not let you get hurt." After activating the space-time amber, after a while, the frozen area finally covered Dylan's entire body. Han Xiao immediately cut off the energy transmission. Dylan was now a captive, so he had enough time to create an amber ball. The next moment, the mutated space-time solidified, and the amber ball instantly took shape, freezing Dylan within. His shocked expression froze. This way, there's no need to waste manpower watching over you. Han Xiao chuckled. Hardaway knocked on the amber ball and chuckled. "Can you kill me so easily now?" Dylan was frozen, but he still maintained his perception of the outside world and his ability to think. Realizing that he could not move, he was shocked. So, this is the ability to seal the 10,000 deity scepter? This is not Black Star's own ability. Black Star has another universal treasure other than the evolution cube? After teasing the immobile Dylan for a while, the Black Star guards dispersed. After the big battle, everyone was exhausted and went back to rest. Watching them leave, Han Xiao stopped smiling and opened the interface. Only now did he have the time to calculate the losses and gains of this battle. Recommended book, Heaven's Descent by 30 Feet of Red Dust. The main character is a muscular and cute guy with a girth around his waist. He's really reckless. Introduction. Yi Chun traveled through 10,000 years of time and space and was reborn into the era of the Great Descent, where humans dominated the 10,000 realms. With the help of the attribute points he received from his transmigration, he dominated the 10,000 realms. Chapter 850. The Arcane Church really went all out this time, squeezing out a lot of my trump cards. Han Xiao got the mechanical assistant to take out a few dozen tubes of special nutrition paste from the fridge and place them on the table. He grabbed a tube, casually opened it with his teeth, and poured it into his stomach. As soon as it entered his stomach, it was broken down and absorbed without any aftertaste. After the battle earlier, although his injuries recovered quickly, his stamina was greatly depleted. His boiling blood had just cooled down, and every cell in his body was transmitting the desire of hunger to his brain through nerve signals. Eating some nutrition paste would speed up the recovery of his stamina. The most dangerous stage had passed, but Han Xiaoxi knew that the battle was not over yet. The Arcane Church descended from the sky through the multi-dimensional sky opening transportation device of the Radiant Federation. But when they returned, they would have to take a spaceship and cross the universe. With the dynasty's personality, there was no way they would let the 6 beyond grade as of the Arcane Church go home. Oh, 5 of them. Therefore, when Tai Tai and the others arrived, the roles changed. It was their turn to chase Sagman and the others. Under the pursuit of hundreds of millions of dynasty soldiers in the flickering world, it would not be so easy for the people from the Arcane Church to successfully escape. Even if they escaped from the flickering world, the Shattered Star Ring was still waiting for them. That was the headquarters of the Clint Kingdom, Bloodshed Land, and Black Star Corps. Having received such a huge gift, Han Xiao was not stingy at all. He had already made up his mind to mobilize all the forces of the Black Star Corps and his deep network in the Shattered Star Ring to return the favor. While thinking, Han Xiao looked at the interface and calculated the losses that the Arcane Church had caused him this time. Leveling up during the EXP penalty period had consumed a large amount of EXP. Even with Han Zhao's foresight, he could not help but feel his heart ache at the amount of EXP lost. A 40% EXP loss was almost half of his EXP. As a thrifty and simple person, he did not like to waste EXP. If he used this EXP loss to upgrade his blueprints and skills, he could obtain a lot of potential points. In terms of character summon cards, Reynold, Aurora, and Aim's character summon cards had all been used up. ES God and Heber only had one character summon card left. These were all powerful trump cards, especially ES Gods, Esper Silence, character summon card. This was the nemesis of ES God. One less character summon card meant that he had one less trump card against ES God. Furthermore, ES God was the winner of this attack. Because of the Arcane Church's actions, he had no choice but to satisfy ES God's needs and force ES God to retreat from the battlefield. With the nourishment of the evolution energy, ES God would become even more difficult to deal with. He might even be able to touch the threshold of the so-called higher level. This would affect his plan to deal with ES God. His plan was disrupted, and he was a little annoyed. However, the mission this time at least rewarded me with 3 unknown character summon cards. Together with the 2 blank character summon cards and 1 skill upgrade card that I randomly drew, I should be able to make up for some of the losses. Han Xiao shook his head. His mechanical army also suffered great losses. A large number of mechanical soldiers had died, and it would take some time to replenish them. On the other hand, because Han Xiao purposely did not allow them to participate in direct battles between beyond grade, as there were not many casualties. Compared to other mechanical armies, mechanical lives with the ability to grow had greater potential. It would be too much of a pity if they were destroyed in such a one-sided battle. After all, there were little lives that he had painstakingly sown. For this, he had even experienced the feeling of kidney deficiency many times. It was enough to let his mechanical army be the cannon fodder. In a sense, this battle had started because of Han Xiao. If any beyond grade has died because of this, the dynasty would definitely be unhappy. Thankfully, with Austin's help, they were only injured and did not die. Han Xiao could also answer to this. This way, he would owe Austin a huge favor, which was not entirely a bad thing. Sometimes, owing someone a favor could actually improve one's relationship. Austin was originally a neutral party, but after this battle, he had provoked the Arcane Church, so it would be very difficult for him to continue being a bystander. Although he would not go as far as to immediately surrender to the dynasty. After this incident spread, all the organizations in the universe would mark him as a member of the dynasty, and he would not be able to keep a low profile like before. Han Xiao could not help but think of Cisco, and his expression became a little strange. In that case, Austin has become close to the dynasty. Ames is my ally, so she can be considered half a friend of the dynasty. Heber is also a member of the dynasty, including me. 4 of the 5 beyond grade, as in the Shattered Star Ring, are related to the dynasty. Cisco will probably have to keep a low profile in the Shattered Star Ring in the future. With Cisco being targeted, the Star Pupil Protoss would also be under more pressure, but he would not be subject to the dynasty's military retaliation. After entering the era of peace, the entire world was connected to the internet. The citizens of the advanced civilizations had broadened their horizons and gained more perspectives. Therefore, in terms of social evaluation, the stronger civilizations gradually lost the legitimacy to use violence against the weaker civilizations. They gradually lost the absolute support that the citizens had for their own civilization during the exploration era. Now, the universal civilizations would at most fight with each other. At the very least, they would pick on the supercluster civilizations as their opponents. They rarely used military force against the weaker civilizations, unless someone questioned and challenged their dominance. Although the Universal Civilization Contact Treaty was something that only allowed the state to do whatever they wanted if it was not necessary, they were not willing to destroy the authority of this treaty. Cause and effect completed. Due to your performance, you have received 450 billion EXP, 3 random rewards, character summon card, Photon Sagman, character summon card, Star Pupil Cisco, character summon card ES God. Character summon card, Photon Sagman. Light energy particle flow, infiltration. Releases a powerful light energy particle beam with high penetrating, explosive, and burning damage. The light energy will continuously cause damage over time and inflict energy interference and energy suppression statuses on the target. When the enemy uses energy attacks, there will be a decrease in power, a decrease in hit rate, and so on. Usage limit: 0/5 character summon card. Star Pupil Cisco, Psychokinesis, Wall of Heart. After being weakened by psychic resistance for 7 seconds, the actual damage will be reduced by 85%, and the target will be immune to all mind control skills. If the attacker is a psychic, the INT and MYS attributes of both parties will be determined. If one of the attributes is higher than the attacker, 45% of the theoretical damage will be reflected. If both attributes are higher than the attacker, 90% of the theoretical damage will be reflected. If both attributes are lower than the attacker, there will be no reflection. Usage limit: 0/3D. Defeating the Arcane Church fleet and obtaining the highest EXP reward was within Han Zhao's expectations. The effects of the 3 character summon cards were not bad. This time, he was not lucky enough to get ES God's Esper Silence. However, Esper ability copy was not bad either. It was equivalent to 3 blank character summon cards for Espers. ES God had a messy set of abilities, so it was already Fu Ding's miracle that he was able to get this. You have received 1 legendary point. Enemy of Ethereal, the highest level of Universe legendary point. Looks like this will become a new nickname. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled. Every Beyond grade, they had a series of nicknames, representing the legendary things they had done in the past. Han Zhao now had nicknames like Indestructible Body, Indestructible Black Star Core Captain, and so on. After this battle spread out, the galactic residents in the universe would probably give him another enemy of Ethereal. The Arcane Church was aggressive and wanted to kill him, but he had sealed their universal treasure and even captured their Beyond Grade A combatant. At this point, the enmity between the two sides had deepened. The significance of capturing a Beyond Grade A alive was extraordinary. Back then, Heber had challenged him to a battle in order to obtain a similar result. Unfortunately, he did not succeed, and he had obtained such a result before Heber. This way, his deterrence in the universe would be completely different, and he would obtain a higher status. He felt that Tai Tai would be very envious. Speaking of which, Heber was rushing back to help. Thinking of the expression Heber might have, Han Zhao could not help but chuckle. The notification on the interface also showed that the dungeon, Flickering World, Planet Lighthouse Battle, had been created. This time, there were a total of 11 Beyond Grade as participating in the battle. Other than war, such a scene rarely happened, and it was enough to shock the entire universe. Although it happened in the Flickering World and had not been announced to the outside world, it was foreseeable that this news would be like a bomb that would explode the entire universe. With such a huge impact, it was not strange for a dungeon to be created. Unfortunately, with the intensity and level of this battle, the purpose of this dungeon was only to provide an opportunity for the players to see the world. Level 260 Main Class, Mechanic Race, Black Star Race Attributes, 3,247 STR, 3,980 DX, 5,889 END, 8,489 INT, 2,950 MYS, 1,163 CHA, 1 LUK free attribute points, 0 potential points, 33 health, 3, 854, 550 stamina, 3, 521, 0 25 energy, 82120 LV, 17 LV, 17 energy bonuses, plus 1,206 STR, plus 1,488 DX, plus 1,890 END, plus 2,345 INT, plus 1,123 MYS, plus 311,520 stamina limit, plus 1,632% machinery affinity energy rank for 9975 grade. S. Beyond Grade A. This seems to be a Beyond Grade A mechanic who insists on being a meat shield. My energy rank is almost 50,000. Han Zhao stroked his chin. He still remembered that when he had just reached the Beyond Grade A realm, his energy rank seemed to be around 43,000. Later on, he had learned the Heber Stellar Furnace training technique and the ultimate knowledge, Mechanical Life Tinder, and his energy rank had increased by quite a bit. This was especially true for the upper limit of his energy. Heber's training method had increased his energy by more than 16,000. When he had just reached the beyond grade A realm, his energy limit had only been around 50,000. Now it had reached 80,000, rising from LV 15 to LV 17. He had obtained 2 new layers of attribute bonuses. The higher his energy level, the more attribute bonuses he would receive with each increase. He hadn't neglected radiation absorption either, adding a few more attributes to it. The next race evolution will be at level 300, and the level limit of a Lord Mechanic is also level 40. Similarly, I will only be able to advance at level 300. In that case, only the level 280 promotion mission will stop main. Han Xiao pondered. The upper limit of the Emperor Mechanic class was level 35, and the upper limit of the Lord Mechanic class was 5 levels higher. Apostle, Emperor, and Lord. In the Lord Mechanic class, the advantages of the previous 2 classes were combined and further enhanced. Similar to the previous 2 class advancements, the virtual technology skills and talents were enhanced. This time, the effects were increased by 60%. There were 4 new abilities that he directly obtained. Talent Machinery Lord, plus 300% Machinery Affinity, plus 200% Virtual Intrusion and Defense Efficiency, and a certain change in the nature of his mechanical force. While circulating his energy, he would also be able to cast his consciousness, obtaining the so-called Lord qualification. The introduction did not go into detail, only stating that this was the prerequisite for some new abilities of the Lord Mechanic class. Ability Lord Grade Machinery Affinity, a series of familiar machinery affinity skills. It was 1 level higher than the Emperor grade, increasing machinery affinity by 190%. Ability Apostle Life Creation. Similar to Emperor's Gift, it was also a special enhancement for a single mechanical target. However, the effects were quite different. Emperor's Gift could only be used 3 times on the same target, and there was no limit to how many targets it could be used on. Apostle Life Creation was different. Its effect was to use mechanical force that contained the so-called power of the Lord to turn a mechanical soldier into an apostle weapon under the Lord. The enhancement was extremely terrifying. It could basically turn a normal unit into a mini-boss unit. If the foundation was better, it was even possible for it to turn into a super boss unit. With such a terrifying enhancement effect, Apostle Life Creation had a limit to the number of apostle weapons. When it was raised to the max level, he could have 12 apostle weapons at the same time. The power of the Lord in their bodies could be retrieved at will, and the number of slots could be changed. This ability could also be enhanced by various skills. Every time he broke through the limit by 1 level, he would obtain a new apostle weapon slot. The last ability was Lord's Descent. This was a long-range combat ability. Through the special mechanical force of the Lord Mechanic, he could project his will, mind, and strength onto a mechanical soldier, turning this mechanical soldier into an existence similar to a doppelganger. It would be able to share a lot of the attributes, abilities, and talents of the main body. It was as if the main body of the Lord had descended, possessing the strength of a beyond grade A super. This meant that while Han Xiao was sitting at home, other than providing mechanical force blessings to the long-range troops through the quantum infinite distance transmission channel, he could also choose an underling to use this move personally. The restriction was that it could only be used on 1 target at a time. The introduction also stated that if Lord's Descent was used frequently on the same target, there was a chance of forming a soul connection. These 4 abilities are all very reliable, especially Lord's Descent. Han Xiao rolled his eyes and thought, after today's battle, there should be fewer people looking for trouble with my main body in the future. My combat style will probably start to focus on long-range combat. This ability should be of great help to me. After summarizing his losses and rewards, Han Xiao received a call from Terakov, saying that the ruler of Urinril wanted to speak to him personally. Even a beyond grade A ally would not be able to meet the ruler of the dynasty just because they wanted to. Since Urinril wanted to talk to him, It was clear that his results had surprised her. Furthermore, there were still some problems that needed to be discussed. The mission to kill Sagman and the others also needed to be discussed. Got it. I'll wait for her online. Han Xiao took out his communicator. His mind was filled with thoughts as he waited for the call to be connected. The actual reward was the most tempting. He had risked his life to make such a huge contribution, and he wanted to obtain new dynasty knowledge. Unravel should not reject him, right? Chapter 851. Very soon, the communicator shot out an inverted cone-shaped pseudo-projection light that quickly scanned the room. Wherever it passed, the scene in the room changed instantly, turning into the meeting room where Unravel and a group of high-ranking military officials were. Han Xiao glanced around and realized that everyone present was an upper echelon of the military. They were all looking at him with curiosity, admiration, and various other emotions. Black Star, you've made a huge contribution in this matter. The dynasty will reward you for your contribution. Unravel praised as she stared at Han Xiao. I was only saving myself. In such an occasion where the upper echelons of the dynasty were gathered, Han Xiao could not help but say something modest. No matter what, you've made a contribution. Unravel then returned to the main topic. Tarakov has already described the process of this battle, but I want to hear your version. There are some questions that I need you to answer. Han Xiao did not mind. Looking at this battle from the perspective of a beyond grade, the information he had was naturally different. He described the entire battle from beginning to end and skipped the parts related to the interface. Unravel nodded and asked, I want to know if the method you use to block and seal the 10,000 deity scepter is a new universal treasure. This is something I discovered by chance when exploring the flickering world. It's a space wonder. I see. Unravel did not ask about the name and function of the space-time amber. If Black Star was willing to tell her, he would. If not, she would not force him. A beyond grade, they had the right to keep their abilities a secret. She only needed to ensure that Black Star was on her side. I sealed the 10,000 deity scepter. If nothing goes wrong, the arcane church won't be able to break my seal. It's just that they don't know about it yet. The 10,000 deity scepter is a universal treasure that they value. They might negotiate with the dynasty privately. Unravel's eyes flickered, and she asked, Are you sure it'll be difficult for them to break the seal? Nothing is absolute. The arcane church might be able to figure out something, but from the looks of it, the probability of them breaking the seal is very low. It's very likely that only I can help them break the seal. I understand. If it's really as you said, we've underestimated your contribution. The arcane church has lost the 10,000 deity scepter, so their deterrence toward beyond grade as will drop. I've already decided to retaliate against the arcane church. The probability of the dynasty's beyond grade, casualties will be reduced because of you. Very well. Unravel paused for a moment. However, the matter on Planet Lighthouse has strained the relationship between both parties. For the time being, the arcane church will not negotiate with us privately and will pretend that they have already broken the seal. You're right. Han Xiao thought about it. Indeed, if the dynasty wanted to retaliate, the arcane church would not give in easily. It was very likely that they would pretend to be strong and not be able to break the seal while pretending to be strong on the surface. Also, regarding God, the arcane church actually cooperated with the infamous Fallen Arkansas. The dynasty will issue a statement to the entire universe condemning the actions of the arcane church. Unravel changed the topic. Don't worry. The dynasty has no objections to you using the evolution cube to satisfy God. Han Xiaoxin was stunned for a moment before he understood. His scheme against God had taken effect, but in essence, he had still made a deal with God. However, the dynasty was not unreasonable. If he had made a deal with God privately, he would not have been able to clear his name. However, at such a critical moment, he had no choice. He had no choice but to make a deal with God in front of everyone. Unravel said that she would not pursue this matter, which meant that the dynasty would not allow anyone to use this matter to damage Black Star's reputation. From this sentence, Han Shao realized that Yurenril wanted to rope him in to become a member of the ruler's faction. Personally, summoning him was not only to reward him, but also to express this attitude. With the dynasty's strength being so huge, it was naturally impossible to avoid internal conflicts. Han Shao had made a huge contribution this time, so there would not be a problem when he was in the limelight. However, after some time, some factions might use this as a pretext to make a fuss. If a dynasty beyond grade A dies this time, or if I don't capture Dylan, someone might use this to force me to hand over the evolution cube. Han Shao was secretly shocked. He had just finished the battle, so he did not think too much about it. Now, with Yurenril's reminder, he understood the ruler's good intentions. "Thank you, Your Excellency." Han Shao nodded. Yurenril nodded. "Regarding Dylan, what do you plan to do with him?" "I've decided to hand it over to the dynasty." Han Shao slowly said, "The arcane church returned in failure this time, so they won't easily make a move on the evolution cube again. However, if I keep Dylan as a captive, the arcane church will definitely take into consideration the opinions of their allies and will definitely take measures to rescue him. I don't want this to happen again. If it happens again, I might not be as lucky as I was today. It's better to hand it over to the dynasty and use it as a bargaining chip with the arcane church." Although he had defeated the arcane church this time, if he imprisoned Dylan as an individual, it would not only be a slap in the face, but also a step on the face of the arcane church. They were a universal civilization after all, so it would not be a problem for him to retaliate. However, if he completely angered them, there was a 99% chance that he would not have a good ending. Dylan was a hot potato, and keeping him in his hands would bring more disadvantages than benefits. It was better to hand him over to the dynasty in exchange for greater contributions and a large number of faction contribution points, which he could use to exchange for ultimate knowledges. "You did the right thing. I thought the same. I originally wanted to persuade you, but since you're willing to hand it over, it's even better." A rare smile appeared on Yurenril's cold face. Knowing that Han Shao had accepted her olive branch, she smiled and said, "You've made a huge contribution this time. Other than the dynasty's support for you and the Black Star Corps, you can ask for anything else. The dynasty would definitely provide more resources and support to the Black Star Corps this time." This did not need to be emphasized, so Han Shao asked for what he wanted the most. "I hope to get more ultimate knowledges." No problem." Yurenril agreed. "I'll instruct the dynasty's logistics officer to talk to you directly. You just have to ask him." Something as small as exchanging ultimate knowledges was impossible for the busy dynasty ruler to handle personally. Han Shao smiled and nodded. The contribution he made this time would definitely be more than just one ultimate knowledge. At this level, every single ultimate knowledge would bring a huge boost to the combat power of a mechanic. However, it was impossible to get all the ultimate knowledges at once. While it was true that he had made a contribution, there were rules to the rewards. Ultimate knowledges were one of the most important ways to attract beyond grade as to join the alliance. Even the dynasty's direct beyond grade has had to slowly earn them. The impact of this incident will affect the situation of the entire universe. Yurenril regained her serious tone and said with a deep voice, "The arcane church provoked us, so the dynasty has to fight back. The Radiant Federation has always liked to bet on both sides, so our efforts to explore the flickering world will be restricted. With the three universal civilizations fighting each other, the supercluster civilizations will take this opportunity to increase their efforts to infiltrate the flickering world. This is exactly what Ethereal and Radiance want to see. They'll force the dynasty to deal with multiple problems at the same time and put us in a quagmire." Han Shao knew that Yurenril definitely had a purpose for saying this, so he asked, "What do you think?" "We need to intimidate the supercluster civilizations, so we'll call back some of the beyond grade as in troops stationed in the flickering world. Of course, their organizations will still be exploring the flickering world." Han Shao did not say anything. He knew what Urnrel meant. It was impossible for the dynasty to keep so many beyond grade as in the flickering world. They must have had this idea a long time ago, but he did not care. His and Heber's territories were in the neighboring Shattered Star Ring, so it was unlikely that they would be summoned back. Seeing this, Urinril changed the topic and asked, Black Star, what do you think of the dynasty's current situation? It's not much different from you. The battle mainly revolves around the flickering world, and not everyone can participate in it. The aftermath of the Crimson Tide is gradually cooling down, so the Galactic Society will not be affected. Those star cluster and star system civilizations will become more obedient. Han Xiao shrugged. Maybe. Urinril nodded slowly before suddenly asking, Do you have any suggestions for the dynasty's counterattack? Han Xiaoxin's head moved slightly. The ruler was discussing the dynasty's plan with him, so she might not accept the suggestions. However, this attitude of hers meant that his status and authority within the dynasty had increased. After thinking about it, Han Zhao's eyes flashed, and he coughed before saying, The dynasty's counterattack is necessary, but the focus can be adjusted. The Arcane Church is also a universal civilization, so counterattacking them is only a necessary attitude. I'm sure Your Excellency knows that it will be difficult to achieve a result. Continue. In my opinion, we should focus on taking revenge on ES-God. ES-God also participated in the Battle of Planet Lighthouse, so he's much easier to deal with than the Arcane Church. The desolate universe belt in the middle of the central galaxy has always been the default battlefield for the three universal civilizations, so we can deal with ES-God while we're at it. If we can get rid of the Fallen Ark, the dynasty will have displayed a swift and decisive counterattack, which will be even more intimidating. This matter was a good opportunity to persuade the dynasty to deal with ES-God. If they could obtain the dynasty's help, the chances of getting rid of ES-God would be even higher. Urinril did not deny it and calmly said, I'll get someone to analyze your suggestion. The most important thing now is to chase after the Arcane Church and ES-God's fleet. When the reinforcements arrive, listen to Tarakov's command and cooperate with the dynasty's fleet. It won't be so easy to escape after beating us up. After saying that, Urinril nodded to Han Xiao and said, Go and rest first. We still need you to continue fighting during the chase. Okay. After ending the call, the projection in the room disappeared, and it returned to its original state. Han Xiao heaved a sigh of relief and rejoiced in his heart. The contribution of this battle had increased his presence in front of the dynasty's upper echelons, and his identity in the hearts of others had changed from a new ally to a reliable beyond grade A of the dynasty. He had even obtained the ruler's invitation, and his status and influence had increased. After putting away the communicator, Han Xiao realized the new notification had popped up on the interface. You have received 1 political asset. Political asset. 1 Red Empire. You have made great contributions to the Red Empire and have obtained a certain amount of political influence. You can make suggestions to the Red Empire. Based on the rationality of your suggestions, the Red Empire has a certain chance of accepting them. You have obtained a higher status in the Red Empire. Plus 30% favorability accumulation efficiency when interacting with certain organizations or people. You have obtained valuable experience. Plus 30% experience gain efficiency in all forms. Remarks. The condition for the above effect to take effect is that your relationship with the Red Empire remains at reverence. Yo, I thought there was only a legendary point reward and no political asset. Han Xiao was shocked, but immediately understood that this was probably an additional reward triggered by Urinril. However, it was not easy to maintain this political asset. He had to spend faction contribution points to exchange for ultimate knowledges, which meant that he had to ensure that his contribution points were not lower than 6,000. This was the 50% discount for exchanging for an ultimate knowledge. You have received 10,000 Red Empire contribution points. I only received the contribution points after chatting with Urinril. Han Xiao rubbed his chin. He had an NPC interface and could casually reward the members of the Black Star Corps with contribution points. Urinril was the leader of the faction, so the principle was the same. However, Urinril did it subconsciously. The 10,000 contribution points were the reward of this battle, and the extra 5,000 points were probably the contribution points that he had handed over to Dylan. Together with the 3,000 contribution points that he had saved up, he now had a total of 18,000 contribution points. Just nice, I can exchange for 3 ultimate knowledges. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled. Ultimate knowledges were different from cutting-edge knowledges. The dynasty would not give them directly and would still use the exchange method. What Unravel said about taking care of him seemed to be giving him more contribution points. In this case, I can exchange for 2 knowledges and keep 6,000 political assets. I'm not in a hurry to exchange them all. Closing the interface, Han Xiaoxin was satisfied. He had the joy of finally receiving a reward after working so hard. At this time, a blue light suddenly lit up outside the porthole and shone on his youthful face. He turned around and looked out the window. Not far away from Planet Lighthouse, the Stargate was finally completed and activated. The blue space energy vortex was spinning rapidly in the Stargate. They're finally here. As time passed, batch after batch of support fleets sailed out of the Stargate. There were the Dynasty's direct fleet, Clint's Star Cluster civilization allies, the Black Star Corps, Bloodshed Land, and other beyond Grade A organizations. Most of these were troops stationed around the strongholds at the borders of the 3 star clusters. If the Arcane Church attacked Planet Lighthouse now, they would only end up being annihilated quickly. The battle's already over. In Tarakov's flagship, Heber, who had abandoned the main fleet and rushed back in a high-speed spaceship, Raven Loudy, who had used the arcane teleportation and Stargate to reinforce them, and Max Similar, who was in a remote projection, gathered together and sat opposite Han Xiao and the other 3. Knowing that the Planet Lighthouse fleet had defeated the enemy without any reinforcements, Heber and the other 2 could not help but be shocked. Planet Lighthouse had actually managed to hold on under such a situation of overwhelming combat power. Black Star had turned the situation of the beyond Grade A battlefield around. Not only that, he had even captured an enemy alive. Heber and Raven Loudy had complicated feelings. They had thought that they were their saviors, but before they even arrived, Han Xiao had already forced the enemy to retreat. It was as though he did not need them at all. However, this thought did not last long. Although they were late, they knew that it was because of the pressure from the reinforcements that the Arcane Church had retreated. Thinking of this, they felt much better. At least they had not been a bystander. Black Star, I heard that you obtained a new universal treasure in the flickering world. You used it to block the 10,000 deity scepter? Raven Loudy could not sit still and asked. That's right. Han Xiao chuckled. Hearing this, Raven Loudy had complicated feelings. He and Black Star had both explored the same star cluster, which meant that this unknown universal treasure was in the Geru star cluster. However, Black Star had gotten it before him. If not for Black Star, this universal treasure might have been his. Raven Loudy felt an inexplicable sense of loss. Heber turned to look at Austin, frowned, and said, Why are you here? You joined the dynasty too? I'm here to help Black Star. Austin smiled faintly. Heber's eyes moved between Han Xiao and Austin. He did not feel good. Since when did the 2 of them have such a good relationship? Ames and Austin had both become Black Star's friends. Heber felt like he was all alone in the shattered star ring. But on second thought, he thought about Psyker's situation. There would be no harm if there was no comparison, so he felt much better. However, Heber could not feel happy. Black Star had captured a beyond Grade A alive this time. This was something that he had been pursuing for many years, but it was obtained by Black Star, who had just entered the beyond Grade A realm a year ago. Heber felt like punching someone. This time, Tarakov opened his mouth. I've already dispatched troops to seal off the escape routes of Sagman and ES God. His Excellency Max Similar is not here yet, so we won't wait for him. We've already gathered 6 beyond Grade As, so we can begin the pursuit. His so-called pursuit was not simply chasing behind, but dispatching the dynasty's fleets all over the flickering world to delay the enemy's journey and seal off their escape routes. He would then send the dynasty's troops in advance to search for the enemy's secret Stargate. All in all, he was mobilizing all the dynasty's troops in the flickering world to use all kinds of methods to chase and intercept the enemy. On the star map, the Arcane Church and ES God's fleets were shown as a mass of red, quickly escaping in different directions. In the direction they were escaping in, blue dots representing the dynasty's troops were sealing off their escape routes. Now that the reinforcements had arrived, they could chase without worry. Milizaus and Bayoni did not have any objections this time. Austin expressed that he wanted to return home to repair the Palace of Hidden Spells and would not participate in the dynasty's operation. Terekov also did not force the outsiders that Han Shao had invited. Heber sorted out his emotions and suddenly realized that this was an opportunity. He might be able to fulfill his wish and get rid of a beyond grade A super. Thinking of this, Heber clenched his fists and said with a deep voice, "Humph Mercer, right? I've heard of this guy before. Leave him to me. The dynasty's dignity is not to be challenged. Milizao's injuries are not healed yet, so leave Ninja to me." Ravenlod's eyes glowed with an arcane light. External enemies were always the best medicine to resolve internal conflicts. As a member of the dynasty, after temporarily putting aside the competitive relationship, he also felt like he had a common enemy. Then, I'll have my long-range mechanical army provide support. The only beyond grade A mechanic who was not present, Maximiliar, looked at Han Shao and said, "Black Star, your mech army has suffered heavy losses. If you need, I can lend you my army temporarily." "Okay, thank you." Han Shao nodded, stood up, and looked around at all the beyond grade as present. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and his tone was sharp. "Since that's the case, let's move. Let's see if they can easily escape back to the central galaxy." The roles had changed. The hunter had become the prey, and the prey had become the hunter. The time to counterattack had arrived. Chapter 852. Streams of hyperdrive light streaked across the dark universe, and the traces left behind by the retreating arcane church fleet woke up the dynasty's space, monitoring buoys one after another, not hiding their route at all. In the bridge of the glorious Sun-grade flagship, Sagman, Cisco, and the other beyond grade as gathered together, looking at the fleet commander Rogue with a serious expression. Rogue's eyes never left the star map. Planet Lighthouse is located at the edge of the Dawn Star Cluster, connected to the desolate universe belt. If we maintain our full speed, we will be able to escape from this area very soon, Rogue said with a deep voice. The transmission of energy and light required time. The scale of the universe was very large, and many long-range detection methods had a certain degree of delay. Using quantum communication to send back real-time information was a more common method of warning. However, the universe was too big, and the dynasty could not set up monitoring buoys in every inch of space. The warning area would usually extend from the stronghold planet to the surroundings, and the density of monitoring buoys would decrease the further away they were. The Arcane Church had already escaped to the outer warning area of Planet Lighthouse, and was entering the desolate universe belt. It was a race against time, and there was no point in clearing the space buoys. They would still be located. Rogue did not mind having his route detected by the dynasty in the warning area. After all, he was not stupid enough to go straight to the location of the secret Stargate. The plan was to enter stealth mode in the desolate universe belt where the space buoys were sparse. Only then would they be able to escape the dynasty's direct surveillance. They would then split into dozens of teams and move toward the secret Stargate. This way, a considerable portion of the teams would be abandoned. When their fleets set off, the location of the secret Stargate had already been moved. The original coordinates of the secret Stargate had already been destroyed, but there was no new information on the star map. Only Rogue, the Beyond Great As, and a few of his confidants knew this information. This was to prevent the teams from revealing the location of the secret Stargate after they were captured by the dynasty. Of course, these teams were not completely abandoned. They were just a distraction. When Rogue, the Beyond Great As, and the rest of the core troops escaped from the Glittering Galaxy, the true location would be revealed to these teams. At that time, even if the secret Stargate was exposed, the impact would be much smaller. They could blow up the Stargate at any time to stop the losses. At the very least, they could let these troops cross the desolate universe belt and return as soon as possible. Every minute we spend in the flickering world increases our risk, Sagman said with a deep voice. If you only know how to say this kind of nonsense that everyone knows, then don't open your mouth. It's all thanks to you that the danger we're going through now is meaningless. Luo didn't hold back at all. His tone carried a hint of anger. He had just reported the results of the battle to the bishops and was scolded. Thinking of the bleak future ahead of him, he could not help but feel angry. At this time, he did not want to give these beyond grade as who had caused the failure of the operation any face. Being blamed, Sagman's face tightened. He thought about it, but did not do anything. They were indeed in the wrong, since the beyond grade a battlefield was the cause of the problem. The other four turned a deaf ear to his words. Everyone was now in the same boat, fleeing in the Empire's territory. No one cared about Rogue's disrespect. Cisco's expression was the worst. Thinking about his friend Dylan falling into the hands of the dynasty, his mood was extremely bad. He could not be bothered with the others. Seeing that no one spoke, Rogue snorted and said, "The dynasty is definitely sending troops to block our escape route, but there's no need to worry too much. This is just a fake route. Furthermore, most of the fleets that the dynasty can use nearby have gone to reinforce Planet Lighthouse. It will take time for the strongholds further away to send out their fleets, so even if we're intercepted, we can easily annihilate them. The only thing we need to worry about is the dynasty's beyond grade as chasing after us. Based on the current situation, Tarakov will definitely wait for reinforcements to move together. Unfortunately, I originally thought that we would have a chance to lure the enemy and kill them. While Rogue was analyzing, Sagman and the others were privately discussing through psychic communication. With the size of the fleet, it'll still be obvious even if we split up. Maybe we should leave the fleet and take a small spaceship. It'll be more discreet that way, Taylor said. We can consider it. Let's talk about it after we split up. When escaping, the survivability and concealment of a beyond grade, a moving alone was much higher than moving with the fleet. As individuals with great strength, they were not afraid of the harsh environment of the universe. Furthermore, they were extremely small targets and could hide on a desolate planet. No one would be able to find them. This was especially true for Ninja and Taylor, who had secret techniques. Without enemies to hold them back, their teleportation abilities could appear and disappear like ghosts. Rogue was worried that they would be chased by the dynasty's beyond grade so he wanted to bring Sagman and the others with him. Little did he know that Sagman and the others were also considering using the fleet as bait to attract the dynasty's attention. In another direction, the fallen Ark fleet was also retreating at full speed. Due to the split in the battle, Esgod's fleet had lost contact with the Arcane Church. Without an intelligence channel, they had no idea what the other party was up to. In the face of a great disaster, they were all fleeing on their own. However, they had an advantage. They had attacked from the outer perimeter and deliberately destroyed many space monitoring buoys along the way, creating a scattered blind spot that was convenient for escaping. In the command room of the main ship, Hawkinson moved his gaze away from the star map and turned to look at the Esgod doppelganger beside him. Esgod's main body had already found a secret room to evolve, and he did not know how long it would take. Before he started evolving, he had purposely created some doppelgangers to protect himself and monitor the fleet. Esgod had always been wary of everyone, even his right-hand man Hawkinson, who had accompanied him for more than 100 years. When his main body was at its weakest, the only person he truly trusted was himself. "You still don't trust me?" Fakizan's barbed tongue moved like a spirit serpent. He licked the red metal mask covering half of his face, making a scratching sound. He snorted from his nostrils, which made him look like he was sneering. In front of the Esgod doppelganger, Hawkinson raised his 4 withered arms, and purple mist seeped out of his dark purple skin, condensing into a ball of mist in midair. It was bound by some kind of ability and looked like a bead. Then he looked for his subordinate and handed the bead in his hand to the other party. "Empty an ordinary battleship and remove the energy core, artificial intelligence system, and other components, leaving only an empty shell. Put this bead in the spaceship, then abandon the spaceship and let it drift on the path we passed. Let the dynasty troops chasing us discover this spaceship. The ES god doppelganger turned to look at him and said coldly, "What are you planning to do?" Hakizan laughed eerily. "I'm going to contact the dynasty." Bang! As soon as he said that, the ES god doppelganger suddenly grabbed his neck, lifted him up, and pressed him against the wall. "You want to betray me?" Hakizan was not afraid at all with his neck being grabbed tightly. Instead, he laughed even louder. "Ha ha! I'm going to cooperate with the dynasty. If they can provide us with information about the Arcane Church, we can send some troops to intercept the Arcane Church. After all, those subordinates are just cannon fodder. We're the troops closest to the Arcane Church. With our help, the dynasty can stall the Arcane Church more efficiently." "There's no need to do that," the ES god doppelganger said coldly. "No, it's very necessary. Compared to the Arcane Church, the dynasty definitely wants to deal with the latter. They have quite a few Beyond Grades on their side, so they're more valuable. If we can capture them, the Arcane Church will lose close to half of their Beyond Grade A combatants. The dynasty won't let go of such an opportunity to attack the enemy. When the dynasty puts its focus on the Arcane Church, the pressure on you will be reduced." Hakizan's tone was filled with mockery and playfulness. "This time, the Arcane Church also hates us for running away. When we return to the Central Galaxy, we'll be attacked by both the Red Empire and the Arcane Church. By doing so, not only will the dynasty's anger toward us be reduced, but it will also weaken the Arcane Church, reducing the number of Beyond Grade A enemies you'll face in the future. Furthermore, if the Arcane Church suffers such a huge loss, they might not have the time to deal with us in the short term." The ES god doppelganger did not comment. "How do I know you're not going to betray my location?" "If your Excellency ES god is still worried, you can leave an ES god doppelganger on that empty spaceship to monitor my communication with the dynasty. If you feel that I've betrayed your location, I'm right here, and you can kill me anytime." The ES god doppelganger was silent for a while before suddenly saying, "You don't have to do this. I'll leave a doppelganger behind to negotiate with the dynasty. You don't have to interfere." He felt that although Hakizan's actions were sudden and strange, it did make sense. If he could negotiate with the dynasty, it would be beneficial for him. After all, it was just a doppelganger, so it would not matter even if it was destroyed. That works too." Releasing his grip, Hakizan landed on the ground, rubbed his neck, and called for his subordinates to disperse the fog ball that he had just created and absorb it back into his body. He then pretended that nothing had happened and continued to observe the star map. The metallic mask that was as red as blood was branded on the upper half of his face. No one could see Hakizan's eyes under the mask, and no one knew what he was thinking. Speaking of which, no one knew how he could see with his eyes covered. The battle on Planet Lighthouse had ended, but the matter was far from over. Under Tarakov's orders, the dynasty's fleet in the flickering world started to chase after the Arcane Church and fallen Arkansas. As for the army players who were watching Bun Hit Dogs post on the forums, before their shock and curiosity faded, a new mission popped up on everyone's interface at the same time. Before this, the Black Star Corps players only knew that the dynasty's outpost, Planet Lighthouse, was attacked. There were about 10 Beyond Grade as fighting, and Army Commander Blackstar was one of them. As for the identity of the attackers and the cause of this incident, they had no idea at all. Crimson Dynasty Order, Full Pursuit, Mission Introduction. Because they coveted Black Star's Evolution Cube, as well as to instigate a conflict, the Arcane Church joined forces with the Fallen Ark to launch a surprise attack on the Dynasty's outpost in the Flickering World. The enemy had a total of 7 Beyond Grade A combatants. However, with the help of the Dynasty's allies, Black Star, Milizaus, Bayoni, and Austin, who was invited by Black Star, we successfully repelled the incoming fleet. Currently, these two fleets are fleeing in the Flickering World. We hereby mobilize all forces to hunt down the invaders and protect the dignity of the dynasty. Chief Commander of the Red Empire Exploration Army, Tarakov mission requirements. Track the fleet of the Arcane Church and Fallen Ark that attacked Planet Lighthouse. Try to discover their whereabouts and kill as many of them as possible. After the mission is completed, Different rewards will be given according to your performance evaluation. After learning about what had happened, the Shattered Star Ring section of the forums exploded. The Arcane Church attacked the Red Empire? Are the universal civilizations about to start a war? No wonder there was such a huge scene of 11 beyond grade as fighting. Is the army commander still okay? He's not dead, right? Their target was the army commander's evolution cube. So this incident was actually caused by the army commander. Holy sh*T. He was targeted by a universal civilization and even defeated them. He's really something. Our Black Star Corps is an ally of the Red Empire. Does this mean that the army is also an enemy of the Arcane Church? I feel like something big is going to happen. Port Bun had obtained first-hand information this time. Below his post, countless players flooded into post, creating dozens of comments per second. He was as excited as a monkey. Following Black Star was indeed the right choice. He had suddenly created such a huge piece of news. After the initial shock, many players became excited. After 3 versions, they had figured out the pattern. The events in Galaxy were connected and influenced each other. This was an orderly system. Based on the intelligence and news from various regions, they could actually use logic to predict some of the events that might happen in the future. This incident involved the 3 universal civilizations, so it was not a small matter. If the 2 sides were to fight, it would definitely not be a small story. Many people had a guess. Maybe this attack was a sign of a future main storyline, or maybe this was the main storyline of the next version. That was not impossible. As this theory spread on the forum, some people made a different suggestion. They believed that this might not necessarily be the main storyline. It could also be an event during the version update, and it would appear as a background introduction in the next version. This theory was also supported by some people. Due to Han Zhao's actions, the Chinese players in the Shattered Star Ring had already developed the habit of guessing the storyline of the major versions. The old Russian and Australian players from the Constellation Corridor also joined in the speculation, joining the excited atmosphere of the forums. There were all kinds of guesses. The Black Star Corps players did not just fight on the forums, but also turn around to join in the chase. Although many of them were too far away and might not be able to make any contributions, the army players were already used to participating in large-scale faction missions. Furthermore, this mission did not have any failure conditions, so they might be able to get the lowest reward. The flickering world was still in a state of information lockdown and was not fully connected to the explored universe. Other than the parties involved, the other organizations in the outside world did not know that such a storm had happened in the flickering world. However, the players were the first outsiders to know about this secret. The army players discussed it enthusiastically in the Shattered Star Ring forums, and the players in the other Shattered Star Ring forums also gathered their friends and came to watch out of curiosity. This time, the forums displayed their unique intelligence advantage. Before the outside world knew anything about this, almost everyone in the player community knew about the storm on Planet Lighthouse. The forces of the 3 universal civilizations were spread throughout the entire explored universe, and their influence was extensive. No matter which star field the players were in, they all felt a sense of nervousness from this incident. They were secretly looking forward to the huge commotion that would follow after this incident was spread to the outside world. On the other side, Tarakov's troops set off from Planet Lighthouse to chase after the Arcane Church. Han Xiao, Milizhao's Bayoni, Heber, and Raven Laudy, the 5 beyond grade as worked together. Not long after they set off, the upper echelons in charge of the dynasty's logistics contacted Han Xiao, according to Urinril's request, and personally asked him what ultimate knowledges he wanted. Chapter 853. Okay, these 2 sets of knowledge will be transmitted to you very soon. Remember to receive them. The officer in charge of logistics hung up the communication. Han Xiao exited the quantum network and played with the black handgun in his hand, waiting for the knowledge he exchanged to be transmitted. The handgun in his hand looked like an outdated firearm with live ammunition, but actually used dark energy technology. Its core was a particle energy furnace, and it was mainly sold to players as a weapon to increase long-range damage. However, to Han Xiao, it was no different from a toy gun. The reason it looked like this was mainly for nostalgia. As he became stronger, Han Xiao's memories of when he was weak became more and more vivid. The scenes of him fighting on Blue Star were still vivid in his mind. Now that he had grown into an overlord in the universe, he could barely kill ordinary soldiers in the beginning. Now, he had the destructive power to destroy planets. There were fewer and fewer things that could kill him, so he cherished his experiences when he was weak. In the blink of an eye, it's been more than 20 years. Memories flooded his mind. Han Zhao's expression was a little complicated. Sigh, people get emotional easily when they get older. Master, what are you thinking about? The hovering guard around Han Xiao, like armed satellites, merged and turned into psionic prime. He stood beside Han Xiao and asked, I'm just thinking about the past. Han Xiao put away his emotions and turned to look at psionic prime. I realize that you're getting more and more curious about the outside world. Psionic prime's metal head nodded. Although I can obtain all kinds of knowledge through the network, the emotions of a life form are ever-changing. Many things can only be understood through personal experience. Therefore, I prefer to communicate. This is a good thing. In the future, I'll need you to manage a mechanical civilization for me. You're the first life form I've created. If there are no accidents, you'll be the leader. As the leader of a civilization, you need to learn to understand others and the thoughts of other mechanical lives. Han Xiao paused, and his expression suddenly became a little helpless. It's a good thing that you like to communicate, but you better change your habit of chatting online. Han Xiao used virtual technology to organize the data of all the mechanical lives. He realized that many mechanical lives, including psionic prime, like to chat with the netizens of various civilizations. It would have been fine if it was a normal chat, but most of the mechanical lives had hundreds or thousands of accounts open at the same time to chat with many people at the same time, and the content was very explosive. The most normal content was actually simulating the opposite sex to chat with others. It could be seen that the overall level of harmony was through the roof, and it was called studying the various emotional reactions of normal organisms. In his eyes, most mechanical lives were problematic children. They were like sponges that absorbed the evil and good of countless creatures at the same time, creating all kinds of personalities. Sizing up psionic prime, Han Xiao pondered for a moment before speaking. Stand in front of me. Psionic prime did as he was told. His streamlined alloy body was filled with the beauty of machinery and technology. The light from the exhaust flames of countless spaceships shone in from outside the porthole and landed on his mechanical body, reflecting the light. Han Xiao leaned on the sofa, and with a flip of his palm, a ball of golden blue mechanical force that looked like an electromagnetic cloud gathered in his palm. It was like a cloud that was slowly changing shape, flickering with the light of mysterious energy. You're my first child. After observing you for so long, I'm very satisfied with your potential. Are you willing to become my apostle weapon and obtain greater strength? I'm willing to accept everything from you, Master. Psionic Prime knelt on one knee. Then, accept this gift. Also, don't call me Master anymore. Han Zhao's lips curled up slightly. Call me Lord. The next moment, with a thought from Han Xiao, the special mechanical force in his palm that contained Lord's power turned into streaks of electricity and entered Psionic Prime's body. It was the Lord Mechanic's ability, apostle life creation. Psionic Prime's energy furnace fluctuated violently, and streaks of golden blue mechanical force extended out from his mechanical body. It was as though they had turned into tentacles filled with electromagnetic energy. A magnetic field that contained a strange aura enveloped Psionic Prime's body. The mechanical structure, components, and nerves in his body started to transform, and the alloys around him started to vibrate as though they were about to be sucked into Psionic Prime's body. It was as though he had turned into a black hole. Han Xiao grabbed with his hand, and a large number of nanoparticles were thrown towards Psionic Prime. Under the effect of the special magnetic field outside Psionic Prime's body, the nanoparticles started to spin around Psionic Prime's body like rings. The spinning speed became faster and faster, and these nanoparticles gradually melted into a flood of metal. They were captured by the golden-blue tentacles and entered Psionic Prime's body, providing him with raw materials for modification. The light left behind dreamy spots on Han Zhao's face. Han Xiao leaned on the sofa and played with the dark energy pistol casually, looking at this scene with great interest. The effect of Apostle Life creation was even better than Emperor's gift. There was a limit to the number of Apostle weapons. Even with all kinds of talents that could break through the upper limit, the number of slots was still limited. The rarer something was, the more valuable it was. Since there were very few Apostle weapons, Han Xiao wanted to give Psionic Prime a sense of ceremony. After a while, Psionic Prime's transformation finally stopped. His appearance had undergone a huge change. At this moment, Psionic Prime had become even taller and was about 4 meters tall. His mechanical body that was silver, blue, purple, and gold was still streamlined, but there were many new structures and many parts that strengthened the complexity of the armor. On the surface of the armor, there were also many complicated patterns that looked very beautiful. A metal ring that looked like a crown appeared on Psionic Prime's head. The back of the shoulder armor and the skirt armor extended downward, and the end gradually narrowed. The edge of the armor had clear, triangular metal scales that looked like layers of feathers, giving off the feeling that he was wearing a feather robe. A white mechanical spear with golden patterns appeared in his hand, and he placed it on the ground as though he was holding a scepter. Han Xiao sized him up and smiled. "How do you feel?" "Thanks to the Lord's gift, I feel a new power." Psionic Prime's tone was calm. He tapped the spear in his hand, and clouds of psionic energy surged out from his energy furnace. The energy fluctuations increased exponentially. Han Xiao narrowed his eyes, suddenly raised his pistol, and fired at Psionic Prime. Bang! 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 Streaks of long and thin dark energy beams hit the surface of Psionic Prime's body and were blocked by a thin layer of psionic energy, triggering a combat notification. Han Xiao looked at Psionic Prime's attributes on the interface, browsed through them, and nodded with satisfaction. The current Psionic Prime had reached level 215, and all his attributes, skills, and talents had been strengthened. He had already reached the level of a boss, far surpassing all mechanical life forms. Without Han Zhao's mechanical force bonuses, he still had the strength of a Calamity Grade Super. With the mechanical force bonuses, it would not be difficult for him to beat a group of Calamity Grades. He would even be able to exchange blows with a Beyond Grade A Super. He would no longer be cannon fodder and would be on the same level as ES God's doppelganger. The spear in Psionic Prime's hands was a special Apostle weapon brought by Apostle Life creation. It was named Psionic Prime Battle Spear after him. It could also split into floating states and expand and shrink. It had multiple forms, and it could be released time and time again to gain more power. It could also convert psionic energy into light waves, and it could be used in both long-range and close-range battles. The weapon was also above level 200, and its quality was silver-orange, which meant that it was a legendary weapon with an inheritance attribute. When used by Psionic Prime himself, its power would be increased. Other than that, Psionic Prime also received special Apostle characteristics and Apostle authority. His Apostle characteristics were Steady and Leader, which would strengthen the mechanical life forms around him. His Apostle authority was Psionic Control and Battle Enhancement, which would allow him to control psionic energy more flexibly and be more proficient in combat. A satisfied smile appeared on Han Zhao's face. The strength of an Apostle weapon was very impressive. It was a pity that the cooldown period of Apostle life creation was very long, which meant that he could create 12 Apostle weapons in a year. Of course, with talents like Machinery Emperor and Elementary Grade Mechanical Sense, he could create more than 12 Apostle weapons. With a thought, Han Xiao comforted him. Familiarize yourself with your new abilities, First Apostle. I will not disappoint the Lord, Psionic Prime said with a deep voice. Beep beep. At this moment, Han Zhao's communicator rang. He picked it up and saw that the Red Empire had finally sent over the 2 ultimate knowledges that he had obtained. After spending 12,000 contribution points, Han Xiao chose the 2 ultimate knowledges. They were Armed Branch, Endless Material Science; Manipulation Branch, Virtual Creator. One was the ability of a virtual mechanic and only required 8 potential points. The other was an extremely important knowledge for a mechanic. No matter which branch a mechanic was from, they would try their best to learn it. Materials and energy had always been a huge bottleneck. In every level of knowledge in the Arm branch, there would be traces of material science. The ability to synthesize stronger and stronger materials and increase the basic attributes of all machines was one of the core knowledges of a mechanic. Learning these 2 knowledges required 32 potential points, and Han Xiao had 33 potential points. Han Xiao smiled and directly used his potential points to learn them. Learning complete. You have learned Endless Material Science. Learning complete. You have mastered Virtual Creator. You have received talent, Material Pioneer. Material Pioneer. Your chances of synthesizing new materials have been slightly increased, and the abilities obtained from special materials have been enhanced. For example, when using memory alloy or nano repair materials, machines will have the ability to repair themselves. If the original effect is 100 points of durability per second, the enhanced effect will be 150 to 280 points of durability per second. You have received talent, Virtual Lord. You have learned ability Ultimate Material Refinement. You have learned ability Endless Material Synthesis. Endless Material Synthesis. You can combine the characteristics of any material and attempt to synthesize new material formulas. The higher the grade of the material, the lower the success rate. The more complex the formula, the lower the success rate. The lower the success rate if there is a conflict between materials. The basic success rate increases with INT and machinery affinity. When you create a new material, the strength of the new material will be increased. You have learned ability Virtual Life Evolution. Virtual Life Evolution. You can turn AI into a virtual life form, and the virtual life form will have stronger virtual intrusion and defense. You have learned ability Virtual Soul. Virtual Soul. Your soul can switch to a virtual life form and wander in the quantum network. The higher your level, INT, and virtual technology bonuses are, the stronger your ability in the quantum network will be. This effect can be dispelled. When you connect to a target with mechanical force, you can temporarily virtualize the enemy's soul and drag it into the quantum network. The success rate depends on your level, INT, MYS, and LUK. If successful, the target will temporarily be unable to control their body, and attacking the target's soul in the quantum network will cause mental damage. This effect has a cooldown of 15 minutes. Han Xiao looked through it and nodded. The effects of these abilities are all very powerful. Endless Material Science allows me to further enhance the quality of my mechanical equipment and create new exclusive materials. Virtual Knowledge allows me to have new tactical options. He had obtained 2 ultimate knowledges. Han Xiaoxin was satisfied. Han Xiao did not use the remaining 6,000 or so contribution points to exchange for new knowledges. He planned to leave them for activating the Red Empire's political asset effect. Just as he was about to head to the combat training room to test the strength of Psionic Prime, who had become an apostle weapon, his communicator rang again. Tarakov had contacted him and revealed a piece of information that surprised him. After hearing that, Han Xiao had a strange expression. You're saying that ES God wants to temporarily cooperate with the dynasty and send a portion of his men to help us intercept the Arcane Church? Yes, the team that went to chase after the Fallen Ark captured an empty battleship shell. An ES God doppelganger is inside. He did not resist and directly allowed himself to be captured, saying that he wants to have a talk with us. Tarakov was also a little surprised. Han Xiao frowned and felt that this matter was a little strange. ES God did not need to do this at all. ES God's mobility was already very high, and he was not someone who valued his subordinates. He did not need to cooperate with the dynasty to escape. Furthermore, the dynasty's target was not him in the first place, So why would ES God do this to anger the Arcane Church? Did ES God think that he could curry favor with the dynasty by doing this? After thinking about it, Han Shao asked, Chief Commander, what do you plan to do? What ES God wants is the information on the location of the Arcane Church. It doesn't matter if we give it to him. Anyway, the Arcane Church is about to leave the security perimeter and will lose track of them very soon. This information is not confidential, so we can tell anyone. Even if ES God is not sincere in helping us, there is no loss to us. If he really wants to trick the Arcane Church and get Sagman and the others to cover for him, we will benefit from it. As for the grudge of him working with the Arcane Church to attack us, we can take revenge in the future. Then we'll do as you say. Although Han Shao felt that ES God's decision was very strange, Terakov was the commander. Since he could not think of any problems, he would not interfere with Terakov's decision. This time, Terakov spoke again. There's one more thing. ES God's doppelganger wants to see you and communicate with you. See me? Got it. The Dynasty fleet chasing ES God doesn't have any beyond grade as, so I will send some mechanical troops over to monitor his doppelganger and prevent him from doing anything rash. Han Shao narrowed his eyes and snorted. ES God was most likely here to thank him for using the evolution cube on him. After pausing for a while, he continued. As for the Arcane Church's fleet, even if they leave the security perimeter, I still have a way to locate them. As a virtual mechanic, how could he not do something to the Arcane Church's battleships during the battle? Although the artificial firewall of the Arcane Church was very strong, he still managed to infiltrate it and leave something behind. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled. I chose to learn the knowledge of the virtual creator at this juncture precisely to chase after them. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.